Gifting her a few healing medicinal pills is hardly an act that crosses the line, is it? But judging by Xia Keo's resolute demeanor, it is all but certain she will refuse to accept them. Fang Chen smiled faintly and said, "You should just keep them. So long as you ensure you have enough for your own use, you may use these to save the lives of grievously wounded companions you encounter." As he spoke, he pressed the jade vial into her palm. Xia Keo froze for a moment. Why did these words sound so familiar? It came to her now. When her martial uncle had previously gifted her the Beast King's gastric pouch, and she had refused to accept it due to its immense value, he had used the excuse of healing the sick and saving lives to make her accept it out of embarrassment. Now he was employing the same old trick again, as if her martial uncle had perfectly grasped her mindset of a healer's benevolent heart. If it were only for her own sake, she might have refused, but when it came to healing the sick and saving lives, she could hardly resist. Xia Keoj was immediately struck with utter dilemma. Returning it felt wrong, yet accepting it also felt wrong, and she stamped her foot anxiously. She said, coquettishly, "Martial uncle, you always bully me." Fang Chen laughed heartily. This trick had indeed worked perfectly. He leaped onto Xiao Bai's back and said, "Farewell, martial niece, stay safe." Then, riding atop Xiao Bai, he strode rapidly towards the meeting point. At the same time, in the northern courtyard leased by the Taishang Sect, the Taishang Sect Master was seething with rage as he listened to Li Shiqian's tearful complaints. Pointing at Yue Mingzhu, who was kneeling on the ground, he roared repeatedly, "You have completely disgraced the entire Taishang Sect. I told you to avenge your junior sister. What the hell have you done? You are utterly useless." Yue Mingzhu spoke with an aggrieved expression. "Master, how can you blame me? You did not see how terrifying Fang Chen's current strength is. If I had recklessly charged at him, I would likely have been sent flying with a single slap, which would have been even more humiliating." The Taishang Sect Master was so furious he could not speak. A mere new disciple could be that powerful. Who was he trying to fool? Just at that moment, a disciple arrived holding an 800 Li urgent missive. "Sect Master, Elder Liu has sent an urgent letter from the Seven-Colored Mine." Upon hearing it was an urgent letter from the Seven-Colored Mine, he forcefully suppressed his rage and said, "Read it." The Seven-Colored Mine accounted for 30% of the Taishang Sect's annual income, so no amount of attention paid to it was excessive. The disciple immediately opened the letter and read aloud, "Reporting to the Sect Master, this is Zhu Nian sending an urgent report of 2 pieces of news regarding the Seven-Colored Mine. The good news is that the poisonous miasma has been eliminated. The number of contaminated crystal ore deposits is limited, and no major harm has been done." Upon hearing these words, the Taishang Sect Master's furrowed brows finally relaxed slowly, and a smile appeared on his face. The rage he had felt moments ago was completely erased by this welcome news. "Ha ha ha, I knew Elder Liu is reliable in handling affairs. In just a few days, he has resolved the great peril plaguing our Seven-Colored Mine." The appearance of the 7-colored poisonous miasma had once thrown the entire Taishang Sect into panic. If this mining area were to be abandoned, the consequences would be too severe to fathom. It is no exaggeration to say it could even have impacted the Taishang Sect's standing for the next 100 years. Now that the hidden danger had been eliminated in one fell swoop, how could he not be overjoyed? "What is the second piece of news? Continue reading," he said with a hearty laugh. The disciple reading the letter glanced at the second piece of content. His face turned ugly in an instant, and he stammered, not daring to read aloud for a long while. "I ordered you to read. Have you turned mute?" The Grand Sect Master snapped softly, burning with impatience to learn what other good news Liu Union had to report to him. The disciple stammered. "The second message reads, I, Union, am overcome with shame. I acted without authorization, bringing catastrophic loss upon the Grand Supreme Sect, and hereby present myself to plead guilty." The Grand Sect Master frowned in confusion. Elder Liu has rendered such outstanding service. The sect and the Grand Elders can barely wait to shower him with lavish rewards. How could we ever blame him? Keep reading. The disciple read on tremblingly. Union invited 3 master toxin neutralizers. Not only did the first 2 fail, their attempts caused the toxin to erupt out of control. Left with no other choice, I agreed to the harsh terms set by the 3rd expert, who lived up to expectations and successfully eliminated the hidden danger. I have fulfilled the terms as promised. I fear these terms will plunge our Grand Supreme Sect into eternal damnation. I, Union, am consumed by dread and shame, unfit to appear before the Sect Master. I beg to be assigned to guard mines for eternity to atone for my sins." The Grand Sect Master fell into deep thought. He had already guessed that eliminating the toxin threat would be no easy feat, and that the invited toxin experts would demand substantial compensation, which he found entirely reasonable. After all, one could hardly expect others to risk their lives to serve the Grand Supreme Sect for nothing. However, was the wording in the letter not a touch exaggerated, terms that would cast the Grand Supreme Sect into eternal ruin? Keep reading, the Grand Sect Master urged impatiently. The disciple swallowed hard and continued reading. I dare not conceal anything from the Sect Master. I have fulfilled the agreement and ceded half of the Grand Supreme Sect's mining territories. The other party. The Grand Sect Master shot to his feet abruptly, his eyes wide as bronze bells. That wretch took half of our Grand Supreme Sect's mining territories. That accounts for 15% of our entire Spirit Stone revenue. To say this is a crippling blow is no exaggeration whatsoever. The disciple did not dare to stop reading on. The rest of the letter detailed the full circumstances, emphasizing that the situation had been so critical at the time that agreeing to such harsh terms had been the only possible course of action. Excellent, truly excellent. Someone dares to rob us while we are vulnerable, and set their sights on the Grand Supreme Sect. The Grand Sect Master roared. Which sect does this disciple belong to? I want to see when our 9 sects gained such a heaven-defying fiend, bold enough to demand half of the Grand Supreme Sect. Mines, he dares to take it. He actually dares. The disciple shrank back into his collar and answered. He is Fang Chen, a personal disciple under the Sect Master of the Azure Cloud Sect, that same Fang Chen who cut through all our Grand Supreme Sect's proud heavens, pride geniuses, and caused Li Shiqian to be stripped of her mission qualification. He snatched the letter in one move and examined it closely. It was indeed Fang Chen. He. The Grand Sect Master let out a furious, grinding laugh. Fang Chen, you have pushed us too far. Crack, his 5 fingers clenched, and the letter in his palm was crushed to fine snow, like fragments. His terrifying aura burst forth like a raging flood, shattering the chair behind him into splinters. Yue Mingzhu, who had been kneeling before him, and Li Shiqian, who had been sobbing her grievances, were both sent flying like scattered leaves by the shockwave. Then the Grand Sect Master flicked his robes and vanished as a blurring afterimage, his furious roar echoing from afar. You too, follow me. Watch closely as I settle every last score with him, one by one. Meanwhile, on the other side, Fang Chen rode Zhao by and arrived at the meeting point. Yue Mingzhu was leaning lazily against a wooden beam by the street, glancing sidelong at Fang Chen. You kept me waiting so long, I thought you'd abandoned me and fled. Fang Chen patted the white void jade bull beneath him. Don't tell me you thought a spirit beast like this would be easy to get hold of. Yue Mingzhu took a closer look, and only then noticed the extraordinary nature of the white void jade bull. Whose spirit beast is this? Ordinary cultivators could never own something like this. Only then did she understand why Fang Chen had taken so long. Obtaining a rare, special spirit beast like this would indeed require a great deal of effort. Stop asking so many questions, get on the bull. Fang Chen was already impatient to set off. Yue Mingzhu hesitated instead. Can't we build a small cabin on the bull's back, or tie a sedan chair to it at the very least? She truly did not want to be seen in public with Fang Chen like this in Sunset City. They had nearly run into the Grand Sect Master earlier, after all. Fang Chen was speechless. When did you get so prissy? Are you coming or not? If not, I'll leave without you. He had never been keen on bringing her along on this risky venture to begin with. Yue Mingzhu stamped her foot in frustration. Stop rushing me. With that, she lifted her large bundles of supplies and leaped onto the bull's back, sitting close behind Fang Chen with her head bowed low, terrified of being spotted by passers-by. Fang Chen found her behavior a little odd, but did not think too much of it. Not long after, Zhao Bai stepped out of Sunset City with a single hoofall, landing in the ice and snow of the northern border. Their journey was finally beginning. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. At that very moment, several figures came speeding over, the leader of whom was none other than the Grand Sect Master. With Zhao Bai's enormous stature and unmistakable distinguishing features, it was all but impossible for the Supreme Sect Master to fail to track down Fang Chen swiftly. Yue Mingzhu, open your eyes wide and watch how your master secures justice for your junior sister. He let out a cold snort, then flashed forward with an icy expression, blocking the path of the white void jade bull. With his hands clasped behind his back, he stared coldly at Fang Chen. I trust you have been well since we last met, Fang Chen. Fang Chen was stunned for a moment before he recognized the man before him. He hurriedly leaped off the bull's back and bowed with cupped fists. Disciple Fang Chen greets the Supreme Sect Master. Even though this man had reported him before, He was, after all, the master of an entire sect. As a junior, Fang Chen knew better than to neglect proper etiquette, and dared not act arrogantly in his presence. The more the Supreme Sect Master looked at Fang Chen, the more his rage simmered. Half the mine, how dared this boy make such an extortionate, lion's share demand? Though Liu Union had laid out the situation clearly, if they refused the terms, the entire mine would be destroyed. If they agreed, they would at least keep half, so the Supreme Sect would suffer no loss. The Supreme Sect Master still seethed at the thought of half the mine being seized by this little brat. He had accepted the agreement, writing off half the mine as if it had been fed to the dogs, but Fang Chen still needed to be taught a harsh lesson to know his place. Fang Chen spoke up to ask, "May I inquire what business brings the Supreme Sect Master here?" He was already well aware of the possibilities. It was either related to Li Shiqian's incident or the mine. However, he had a clear conscience regarding both matters. Even if the Supreme Sect Master wished to make trouble for him, he would need a valid reason to do so, and Fang Chen was certain he had done nothing wrong. The Supreme Sect Master let out a cold snort inwardly. "This Sect Master has come all the way to find you, and you still dare to act so calm. Do you think I cannot find a reason to punish you? Have you never heard that if you wish to condemn someone, you will always find a charge?" As he thought this, a glance from the corner of his eye revealed a woman still seated on the bull's back. Though she had her head bowed, the bull was so tall that from the Supreme Sect Master's upward, angled perspective, he could see her true face perfectly. The moment he recognized who she was, his entire body jolted in shock. The Sect Master of the Joyous Union Sect. Outsiders all claimed that the Joyous Union Sect, with its prevalent dual cultivation practice between men and women, was a den of filth and vice. But the Supreme Sect Master knew full well this was merely a surface appearance. The Joyous Union Sect was a sect focused on cultivating the heart. Carnal pleasure between men and women was only the pursuit of a portion of its disciples. The joy sought by its elders, Sect Master, and Supreme Elders had long reached a far higher plane of existence, and this was especially true of the Joyous Union Sect Master. To this day, he had never heard any unsavory rumors linking her to any man. In terms of purity, she was no less upright than Gong Keiyi, the Sect Master of the Spirit Beast Sect. "So it is you. It has been far too long." The Supreme Sect Master hastily concealed his rage, putting on a warm, gentle expression befitting a refined, virtuous gentleman. "Our last meeting was 3 years ago, was it not? I hope you have been well in the interim." Yue Mingzhu let out a long sigh. Whatever one fears most is precisely what comes to pass. She could not even pretend not to know him now. She cast him a casual glance and spoke in a cool, indifferent tone. "What reason does the Supreme Sect Master have for blocking Fang Chen's path? You look absolutely murderous. Has Fang Chen done something to harm the Supreme Sect, that you, as Sect Master, would take action personally?" When she had said before that she disliked the Supreme Sect Master, she had not been lying. The reason for this, aside from him having pestered her relentlessly to court her when they were young, was most importantly his petty nature. Most of the time, disputes between disciples could be resolved by the disciples themselves, and if not, the elders could step in. But this Supreme Sect Master would pop up now and then to coddle his own disciples, turning trivial issues into huge, public scandals that left both sides disgraced. She had instructed the Joyous Union Sect's elders more than once to rein in their disciples, and avoid overly close interactions with the Supreme Sect's elite disciples, to prevent any conflicts of interest that would draw the Supreme Sect Master into the matter. And here he was, for no apparent reason, popping up again to block Fang Chen's path, showing zero regard for his status as a Sect Master. It would be nothing short of a miracle if Yue Mingzhu could ever feel affection for a man like this. The Supreme Sect Master's face twitched slightly before he laughed heartily. "You jest. How could I, a dignified Sect Master, ever make trouble for a lowly young disciple?" Fang Chen stared at him with a strange expression. "Do you even believe those words yourself?" He had reported Fang Chen to the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion just for defeating a few of his disciples, after all. Fang Chen rubbed the bridge of his nose. He asked in confusion, "Then what guidance does the Supreme Sect Master have for this junior, that you would block my path?" The murderous aura he had radiated just moments earlier had hardly seemed feigned. The Supreme Sect Master froze for a moment. A full 2 breaths passed before a brilliant idea struck him. He turned his head and roared, "Li Shiqian, get over here this instant." Li Shiqian, who had been crouching off in the distance watching the show with glee, fully prepared to witness Fang Chen being brutally punished and groveling for mercy in tears, was stunned for a moment. That tone sounded strangely familiar. After a moment of hesitation, she walked over in a daze and said, "Sect Master." The Supreme Sect Master swept her legs out from under her with a kick, sending her crashing to her knees. Do you know why I brought you here? You slandered and framed Fang Chen, showed no remorse for your actions, and even threatened him in my name. Now kowtow and apologize properly. Li Shiqian's eyes went wide with shock. You brought me here to watch you punish Fang Chen, didn't you? What is the meaning of making me kneel and kowtow? What are you waiting for? The Supreme Sect Master pressed down on her head, forcing her to kowtow 3 times in rapid succession, leaving Li Shiqian seeing stars from the impact. This pattern was all too familiar. Every one of them would first boast with murderous intent that they would avenge her, only to turn their butcher blades on her in the end. She could no longer hold herself together. 2 streams of aggrieved tears gushed down her cheeks as she burst into loud sobs. Whoa, 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 whoa. The Supreme Sect Leader turned to Fang Chen and said, Fang Chen, you have seen it yourself. She is weeping bitterly in repentance, and her desire to mend her ways is surely sincere. For this matter, I beg you to show mercy and cease holding this grudge against her. Fang Chen rubbed his nose, an odd expression on his face. There is truly no need for this. Vice Pavilion Master Yi has already punished her, and Senior Brother Hugh also brought her to apologize to me before. There is really no need to go to such lengths. He even felt a little sympathetic towards Li Shiqian now. The matter was already long past, and he had no intention of pursuing it further. Why were the people of the Supreme Sect instead clinging to Li Shiqian's mistake and refusing to let it go? The Supreme Sect Leader said with a stern expression, This is called killing the chicken to warn the monkey, to serve as a warning to others. Li Shiqian's actions have not only damaged our sect reputation, but also defiled the core traditions of the Supreme Sect. No amount of apology can be considered excessive for such an offense. Fang Chen helped Li Shiqian to her feet and said, Enough, enough. Do not make things harder for her any longer. I long ago let this matter go. Take her back to rest properly. Look, her forehead is bleeding from kowtowing. As he spoke, he took out a small amount of healing ointment and applied it to her forehead. Li Shiqian wept even more bitterly, throwing herself into Fang Chen's arms. Woo woo woo, junior brother Fang. The sect leader and her senior brother had treated her so harshly, not even half as caring as someone who had once been her enemy. Now they were no longer enemies. Fang Chen was the only one who truly cared for her. Fang Chen was also a little stunned by this turn of events. He patted her shoulder, offered a few words of comfort, then said, Does the Supreme Sect Leader have any other business? My friend and I are still on a journey, and we dare not delay too long. The Supreme Sect Leader wore a regretful expression. He had wanted to speak a few more words with the Hehuan Sect Leader, but she had avoided him for years, making even a single meeting difficult. Fortunately, after all his maneuvering, he had successfully redeemed his reputation in front of the Hehuan Sect Leader. You may go. May your journey be smooth. He watched as Fang Chen and Yue Mingzhu, riding on Xiao Bai, vanished into the vast snowy plain, only then withdrawing his gaze in a daze. Just then, he heard Hua Xingshen's nearly inaudible mutter. He even told me to watch her carefully, yet he's no different from me. Crack, the Supreme Sect Leader, clenched his fist. That little brat actually dared to talk back to him. But he truly had no face to call him out on it, so he could only pretend he heard nothing and silently walked back. Li Shiqian wiped away her tears and followed behind without a word. Hua Xingshen tried to comfort her. Junior sister, don't be upset. We'll find another chance to punish Fang Chen. Hearing this, Li Shiqian immediately backed far away and said, You can go do that yourselves. Don't drag me into it. She was terrified. Hua Xingshen said awkwardly, Junior sister, you can't blame Master and me for this. It's all Fang Chen's fault. His words were cut off before he could finish. He was interrupted by Li Shiqian. You are not allowed to speak ill of junior brother Fang. Li Shiqian glared at him with disgust. Hua Xingshen was stunned. Wait, I was speaking up for you. How did I end up being the villain who speaks ill of others? Junior sister, it was Fang Chen who put you in this miserable situation. Hua Xingshen reminded her sharply. Li Shiqian gave a soft huff, her expression twisting awkwardly for a moment. Actually, when I think about it carefully, I was the one in the wrong. I should have apologized back then. If I had, none of this would have happened. You can't blame junior brother Fang for this. He's a good person, the kind of person truly worth befriending. Hua Xingshen was dumbfounded. If Fang Chen was the good person, did that make him the bad guy? He complained discontentedly. Master, listen to what junior sister Li is saying. The Supreme Sect Leader, who was walking ahead, paused in his steps, turned his head and said, Xingshen, you should try to befriend Fang Chen more in the future. A disciple that the Hehuan Sect Leader personally accompanies on a mission is clearly a junior she values highly. If you want to gain more favor from the Hehuan Sect Leader, you can start by currying favor with this junior. Hua Xingshen was stunned once again. He felt as if he had woken up to a world that had been turned completely upside down. Li Shiqian was a little suspicious. Last time, Yue Mingzhu's attitude had changed abruptly when he suddenly realized how powerful Fang Chen was, so he had scapegoated her. Why was the sect leader's attitude changing so abruptly this time? Thinking of the young girl on the ox's back, she could not help muttering, could it be that the sect master has taken a fancy to Fang Chen's woman? By a woman's intuition, the bond between Fang Chen and that woman was far from ordinary friendship. The Grand Supreme Sect Master's ears twitched, and a jolt passed through his heart, but when he recalled the vast gap in seniority between the two, he smiled faintly and said, "What nonsense are you spouting? That is Liu Qingxian, Sect Master of the Hehuan Sect. What possible connection could she have with a mere low-ranking disciple?" That day, across the boundless snowfield, Xiaobai galloped joyfully, its hooves kicking up puffs of snow. Yue Mingzhu's graceful figure swayed and rose and fell with its movements, tracing countless elegant arcs in the air. Glancing at the tear stains left by Li Shiqian on Fang Chen's shoulder, she let out a cold sneer. Who would have guessed? You put on the air of an upright gentleman, yet you are a master at charming women. With just a few words, you made a girl who was hostile to you throw herself into your arms. Even Zai Liushu, our sect's chief disciple, who is famed for his way with women, does not have half your skill. On the journey, Fang Chen told her of the minor conflict he had previously had with the Grand Supreme Sect, and only then did Yue Mingzhu learn the true reason the Grand Supreme Sect Master had stopped Fang Chen. But her focus was not on the Grand Supreme Sect Master's petty nature at all. Instead, she felt a distinct sense of displeasure at the scene she had just witnessed. Fang Chen smiled awkwardly. I also have no idea what got into her, but having one more friend is always better than having one more enemy, right? He hoped to brush the matter off casually. Yet Yue Mingzhu refused to let the matter drop, and asked pointedly, "Be honest with me. How many girls' hearts have you deceived over all these years?" Fang Chen was both amused and exasperated. I have devoted my entire heart to pursuing the Tao, and never let trivial worldly matters distract me. I truly have no energy to charm or deceive any girls. Yue Mingzhu thought it over carefully, and realized his words made sense. If Fang Chen was the sort of man who lusted after beauty, he would never have remained upright and unwavering when she fell off a cliff and lay gravely injured and unconscious before him all that time ago. At this thought, she relaxed slightly, and secretly chided herself for ever doubting Fang Chen's moral character. Martial uncle, a clear, melodious voice like an oriole's song drifted over rapidly. A tall, handsome spirit horse was galloping quickly after them, its long strides eating up the distance. Seated on the horse's back was an incomparably beautiful woman with an otherworldly air, as if she had captivated time itself. Her face was lit up with joy. I thought Martial Uncle had left long ago. Why are you still here? The person who had chased after them was none other than Zia Keoj. She had noticed that Fang Chen had not traveled far yet, and had chased after him in delight. Fang Chen said helplessly, "I ran into a small issue, and was delayed for a short while." Zia Keoj said happily, "That's perfect. We can travel together." She cut herself off mid-sentence, for she had been so focused on Fang Chen that she had only just noticed the fair-skinned, beautiful 18-year-old girl seated behind him, who was gazing at her with a strange look in her eyes. Zia Keoj was innocent, but not foolish. She stuck out her tongue and said, "My apologies, Martial Uncle. I did not know you were traveling with a female companion. I will take my leave now. Farewell." With that, she urged her white horse to leave quickly. She pouted her lips slightly in disappointment and muttered, "No wonder. I asked if I could accompany Martial Uncle on his mission, but he kept refusing. It turns out he already has a beautiful girl to keep him company." Feeling thoroughly bored and disheartened, she urged her spirit horse forward and quickly vanished from sight. Yue Mingzhu gnashed her pearly teeth and laughed, mimicking Zia Keoj's tone in a sarcastic drawl. Martial Uncle, let's travel together." "You are really popular with beautiful girls, aren't you? Even your martial niece adores you so much. I have never seen a martial niece be so close to her martial uncle before." Fang Chen felt a throbbing headache coming on. He did not bother to explain, and focused all his attention on hurrying forward. As they ventured deeper into the northern territory, the land ahead grew increasingly desolate. As far as the eye could see, there was nothing but endless snow. It was a mystery what those demonic beasts ate and drank to grow to such enormous sizes. After several days of grueling travel, they finally reached the legendary Tai Lake. At last, a sight that made Fang Chen's weary eyes light up appeared before him. It was a vast, boundless lake. Though the entire world around them was frozen solid, not a single spot of ice had formed on its surface, which glistened and rippled under the light. Several wild ducks with brightly colored feathers chased after small fish, diving in and out of the water and sending up sprays of foam. This was the first sign of living creatures they had encountered since entering the Northern Territory all those days ago. Even Yue Mingzhu was stunned that such a place existed in the harsh northern territory. She could not help but take a deep breath of the fresh air by the lakeside, and her entire mind and spirit instantly relaxed. Fang Chen, however, spoke in a solemn tone. "Stay alert. This is the most dangerous part of our journey. Liu Qingxian and the others went missing while patrolling Tai Lake, which means the danger is lurking very close by." Boring, Yue Mingzhu rolled her eyes at him. What danger could possibly arise with a sect master like her present? Even so, she cooperated with Fang Chen, putting on a highly vigilant facade. Little did they know, the moment they arrived at Tai Lake, inside an ancient palace surging with scorching heat waves deep beneath the waters, two colossal demonic beasts stared silently at a giant crystal before them. Frame after frame of images floated within the crystal, clearly displaying the perspective of those few wild ducks. The figures of Fang Chen and Yue Mingzhu were clearly visible in the footage. "Blood Flood Dragon, look at the mess you have made. I told you not to attack those patrolling disciples, but you refused to listen. Now look what you have done. You have drawn the sect master of the Yuan sect here." The speaker was a mermaid demonic beast with a graceful, stunning human upper body and a fishtail below, exuding an immensely powerful aura. Her face was grave as she spoke the reproachful words, having clearly made out Yue Mingzhu's features. Sitting opposite her was an extremely ferocious, vicious flood dragon, covered entirely in blood, red scales, bearing some resemblance to the red, scaled vicious flood dragon, yet the baleful aura emitted was over 100 times more intense. "She is merely the sect master of one of the 9 sects. What is the matter? You, enchantress, one of the 10 great war generals, are afraid of her." As it turned out, these two demonic beasts had astonishing origins, and were indeed war generals whose strength matched that of the supreme elders of the 9 sects. Enchantress' beautiful face turned grim. "I am not afraid of her. What I worry about is that the heaven, burning pearl we are guarding, which is soon to be born, will be detected by her." Between the two demonic beasts lay an incredibly enormous ancient river clam. Threads of searing hot spiritual energy spilled out from the clam, spreading across the entirety of Tai Lake. The reason Tai Lake had no ice or frost at all was entirely because of the world shaking pearl that was on the verge of forming inside this clam. Blood Flood Dragon let out a scoff. "So what if she detects it? We can just kill her." "With the two of us working together, how could a mere 8th layer Golden Core Realm Sect Master possibly escape our grasp?" "If she were alone, I might have worried about capturing a human with such endless tricks up their sleeve. But with 2 war generals present, even if the Yuan Sect Master has 1,000 tricks, she will never escape." Enchantress said coldly, and then what? The disappearance of a few elite disciples already drew the Sect Master herself to investigate. "If the Sect Master falls here, who do you think will come next?" The smile on Blood Flood Dragon's face froze for a moment, then relaxed again as he sneered. "It will take at least 10 days for anyone to come investigate after she goes missing." "This pearl will be born in at most 3 days. What is there to worry about?" Enchantress' face remained icy. "I advise you not to stir up unnecessary trouble. Don't forget the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion deliberately released a talisman that can unleash a full nascent soul realm strike. No one knows who holds it now. If by any chance it is in the hands of this Yuan Sect Master, even if we join forces, we will not escape death." That talisman was also a supreme treasure of the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion. They deliberately let it circulate through their subordinate auction house with the sole purpose of intimidating the 4 great demon kings and 10 great war generals of the demon clan, so that they would not dare to appear casually in human territory. This time, Blood Flood Dragon was truly frightened. His eyes shifted between uncertainty and rage for a long time, but in the end, he could not suppress his ferocious nature. He snorted heavily through his nostrils. "What are the odds we are unlucky enough to run into the person holding that talisman? Moreover, as far as I know, the one who won the auction for the talisman was the great elder of the giant sect. He died at the border between the Qingxian sect and the Taishang Sect, so it is extremely likely the talisman fell into the hands of the Taishang Sect. If the Taishang Sect Master came, I would indeed be a little wary, but the Yuan Sect Master... sorry, I have no intention of missing out on the heavenly merit of being the first to kill a human Sect Master." With that, he swept his giant tail, shaking the entire lake bed to its core, then transformed into a long streak of blood, red light, and swam towards the lake surface. Enchantress was furious. "Can you not tell what is more important? Compared to safely bringing back the heaven, burning clam pearl, killing a sect master for the first time means nothing." Blood Flood Dragon was simply bloodthirsty. Now that he had already made his move, Enchantress had no choice but to cooperate with him to prevent the Yuan Sect Master from escaping. At this moment, Fang Chen and Yue Mingzhu were riding on Xiao Bai, searching for the missing people along the shore of Tai Lake. After traveling for roughly half an hour, several colossal figures came into view. When they hurried over to take a closer look, Fang Chen's face instantly turned grave. Four enormous spirit beasts, measuring several zhang in length, lay in pools of blood. They all had saddles on their backs, and even items like carrying cages. There was no doubt that they were the riding spirit beasts of humans. Yue Mingzhu, who had kept a calm expression this entire time, also turned grave. She leapt to the side of one spirit beast corpse. Its head was gone, leaving only a neck covered in sharp tooth marks. The depth of the bite marks and the sheer force behind them made even Yue Mingzhu feel a faint sense of dread. She looked towards the calm lake surface, a faint sense of foreboding rising in her heart. She said in a low, heavy voice, "Fang Chen, the mission is aborted. We return to Sunset City immediately. I will request the Supreme Elders to take action." She had already realized that the being that had bitten this spirit beast to death was no ordinary demonic beast, but an incomparably ferocious entity of unfathomable strength, one that even she might not be able to stand against. Fang Chen's face shifted. Even without Yue Mingzhu's warning, he already felt a strong sense of unease. Aside from the headless spirit beast, the injuries on the other three spirit beasts were also extremely unusual. Their corpses were completely flattened. There was no mistake. They had been crushed flat simultaneously by something in an instant. Fang Chen knew he could kill these spirit beasts, but flattening such large, hard, boned spirit beasts was utterly impossible for him. What was more, he had no doubt that even his master, Liu Qingxian, might not be able to do this even if he used his full strength. So leave they would. Without a second thought, Fang Chen decisively urged Xiao Bai to turn around and leave at once. Yue Mingzhu was a little surprised. She had thought she would have to spend a lot of time persuading Fang Chen to leave, never expecting that the man who had insisted on coming here would leave so quickly and without argument. "I'm very sorry I couldn't help you. Once I return, I will definitely find a way." Fang Chen cut her off, saying, "I should be the one thanking you for accompanying me here." "How could I ever blame you for anything? Besides, our trip was not fruitless. At the very least, we have confirmed that they are still alive." A trace of joy appeared on his face. Yue Mingzhu was stunned. "What makes you say that?" Fang Chen said, "It's very simple. There are no human corpses around us. The ferocious being that attacked them is so terrifying that if they had not escaped, they would have definitely died a miserable death on the spot. What is more, there are 5 of them, so logically there should be 5 spirit beasts. Where is the missing one? I guess they noticed something wrong ahead of time and hid themselves or escaped in time." Yue Mingzhu's eyes widened in shock. She could not deny that Fang Chen's analysis was thoroughly sound. She exhaled softly and said, "Since they are still alive, we must be all the more cautious. We will only return to rescue them when we have sufficient strength. If we alarm those vicious creatures, we will only bring harm to them instead." Fang Chen nodded. This was precisely the reason he had made the resolute decision to retreat. When Xiao Bai heard they were returning, it immediately kicked up its hooves in excitement and galloped madly back the way they had come. As they neared the vicinity of Tai Lake, where they had first arrived, Yue Mingzhu seemed to sense something, and her expression changed drastically. Her gaze flickered repeatedly before she gritted her teeth and said, "Fang Chen, I just remembered. Earlier, I thought I saw a woman's corpse under the body of a dead spirit beast. I was afraid you would be grief-stricken, so I did not dare tell you before." Fang Chen's pupils constricted sharply. Among all the disciples on the patrol mission, Liu Qingxian was the only woman. "Why didn't you tell me earlier?" Fang Chen roared, unsure whether he was consumed by grief or fury. Yue Mingzhu said, "I am sorry. I did not wish for this to happen either." She silently dismounted from Xiao Bai. Fang Chen was in a state of extreme agitation. He resolutely turned back alone to investigate, if that truly was Liu Qingxian. His mind was a chaotic mess as he sped away, leaving Yue Mingzhu standing alone in the wind and snow. She watched silently as Fang Chen vanished from her line of sight, her eyes filled with profound melancholy. "What a fool! I hope you return safely." The moment she turned around, her gaze turned sharp as a blade. Countless strands of Taishang silk fluttered in the wind from within her sleeves. She tapped her foot lightly, transforming into a faint, fresh emerald afterimage, and arrived at the shore of Tai Lake where they had first appeared. Gazing at the pitch-black, bottomless surface of the lake, she said in a cold voice, "Come out." Splash! A colossal wave dozens of Shanghai suddenly erupted from the lake. Before Yue Mingzhu could make out what had emerged, a putrid gust of wind swept toward her back. The Taishang silk in her palm instantly coalesced into a giant net, shielding her back. Boom! An unimaginably terrifying, monstrous force pierced through the Taishang silk and slammed into her back. Yue Mingzhu used the momentum of the impact to leap forward a great distance, only barely managing to steady her staggering figure. She turned to look, only to see a colossal vicious flood dragon over a dozen zhang tall, its entire body as bright red as fresh blood. It stood upright on two legs, its dim yellow eyes glinting with mockery. It spoke in human tongue, jeering, "Your silk threads are rather interesting. They actually dispersed 80% of my strength." A single glance made Yue Mingzhu's pupils tremble violently. She said in a frosty tone, "I wondered who was wreaking havoc in this place. So it is Blood Flood Dragon, one of the 10 great generals under the Demon Emperor's command." Her heart sank like a stone. A terrifying existence like the Blood Flood Dragon could not even be stopped by most of the sect's supreme elders. Only a small handful of the most powerful supreme elders who had reached the 9th layer of the Golden Core realm could stand against it in battle. As for herself, she was absolutely no match for it. The Blood Flood Dragon chuckled. So the Lord of the Hehuan sect recognizes this general. What a pleasant surprise. But what shocks this general even more is that the Hehuan sect lord is such a sentimental soul. You could have abandoned that boy and fled alone, yet you deliberately tricked him away to come die here by yourself. Tusk, in recognition of how much you care for that boy, I will bring his head over later and place it next to your corpse. Ha ha ha. The Taishang silk in Yue Mingzhu's palm surged out to cover the sky and earth, descending toward the Blood Flood Dragon. A frigid killing intent followed in its wake. Who will die here is still far from certain. The Blood Flood Dragon smiled disdainfully. The blood, red scales covering its body, opened and closed as if breathing. The razor, sharp Taishang silk that sliced against them was completely bounced off. What? Yue Mingzhu cried out in shock. No sooner had her attack missed than an impossibly fast, unpredictable afterimage struck out with a fully charged blow. It was only when it was right in front of her that Yue Mingzhu realized it was the Blood Flood Dragon's tail. Boom! Like a tattered butterfly, Yue Mingzhu was sent flying on the spot, crashing heavily into the snowfield. A splash of glaring bright red blood sprayed across the ground, dyeing the white snow deep crimson. Over half of her emerald green robe was soaked in blood, her hair was in complete disarray, and blood poured unceasingly from the corner of her mouth. A single strike had inflicted unimaginably severe injuries on her. The bones in her chest were shattered, her internal organs were mangled, and half of her life had been snuffed out in an instant. This was the gap between the 9th layer and 8th layer of the Golden Core realm. The Blood Flood Dragon chuckled. The lords of the 9 sects are nothing more than this. Killing them is as easy as slaughtering dogs. With that, a vicious glint flashed in the Blood Flood Dragon's eyes. It leaped up, transforming into an incomparably sharp blood shadow, its clawed feet stabbing viciously toward the heavily injured Yue Mingzhu. Even though she was gravely wounded, the Blood Flood Dragon did not let down its guard in the slightest, giving Yue Mingzhu no chance at all to launch a final, desperate counterattack. Thud! But then? An unexpected change occurred in a manner the Blood Flood Dragon could never have foreseen. Just as its feet were about to pierce Yue Mingzhu, a layer of faint golden light emerged around her body. It was made of countless golden copper coins, linked one to another, forming a resplendent golden sphere that shielded Yue Mingzhu at its center. Yue Mingzhu turned her head, a plain, ancient copper coin clearly held between her lips. A mocking glint appeared in her eyes as she said, "You finally fell for my trap." Her right hand seemed to be pulling on something. She yanked hard, and the Blood Flood Dragon suddenly felt its entire body go tight. It looked down, a look of shock crossing its face. It saw that its body was unknowingly covered in countless, densely packed strands of Taishang silk. It turned out that Yue Mingzhu had deliberately let herself be struck. As she was sent flying, she had released Taishang silk everywhere, across the sky and the ground. She had calculated that the Blood Flood Dragon would press its advantage and give chase, so it would become entangled in the omnipresent Taishang silk as it attacked. The faster it moved, the more tightly the silk would wrap around it. As she pulled with all her might, not giving the Blood Flood Dragon's scales a chance to expand and contract, the silk threads instantly transformed into countless razor-sharp divine weapons. In the blink of an eye, they sliced through its scales and dug deep into its flesh. PFFT, PFFT, PFFT. In an instant, hundreds of cuts appeared across the Blood Flood Dragon's dozen, zhang tall body. Fountains of beast blood sprayed outward, falling like a torrential rain of blood. The Blood Flood Dragon let out a cry of agony, trying to shatter the spherical light shield to kill Yue Mingzhu. Yue Mingzhu would never give it that chance. She crunched the rejuvenation pill in her mouth while channeling all her spiritual power despite her severe injuries, yanking the silk violently. Crack, the deafening sound of countless bones snapping rang out continuously. The The blood flood dragon howled in agony, its massive body crashing to the ground. "You wretched woman, I will kill you." Yue Mingzhu's face was icy cold as she said, "You will get no such chance." As she pulled with all her strength, the Taishang silk cut through bone and rapidly sliced toward its internal organs. It was moments away from cutting the blood flood dragon into hundreds of pieces of raw flesh when a faint, quiet sigh sounded out of nowhere next to Yue Mingzhu's ear, making her hair stand on end. Instantly, "You have managed to injure the blood flood dragon this badly. I am almost impressed." Yue Mingzhu's pupils constricted violently. Glancing out of the corner of her eye, she saw a mermaid with a fishtail and a human body of incomparable beauty standing behind her who had appeared out of nowhere. It was roughly the same height as her and did not look like a particularly powerful demonic beast, but the monstrous demonic aura rolling off it made Yue Mingzhu gasp sharply. "Are you also one of the 10 great generals?" A faint flicker of apology crossed the mermaid's cold face. "I am Hai Mei. I apologize that we meet the renowned Yuan sect lord under such circumstances." Even as she spoke the words of apology, her index finger had already lifted gently, tapping against the light shield. She said, "I do not wish to fight you humans. You should not have come to this place. I am sorry." Yue Mingzhu's heart trembled violently. This was just an ordinary lake. Why had 2 of the great generals arrived here at the same time? Could it be that they were plotting something major here? But she had no time to think about it any longer. Hai Mei's index finger tapped lightly against the light shield. That defense, strong enough to withstand a 9th layer golden core cultivator, was suddenly covered in a thick layer of frost before shattering completely before Yue Mingzhu's despairing eyes. At the same time, the frost spread to the Taishang silk. With a crisp cracking sound, all the strands of Taishang silk gripped tightly in Yue Mingzhu's palm shattered completely. Seizing this opportunity, the blood floodworm shook its massive frame, shaking free all the silk threads that were on the verge of slicing into its internal organs. It roared in a mix of shame and fury. "Who asked you to meddle? Give me a little more time, and I could have burned my bloodline to break these threads myself." This statement was half true and half false. The truth was that it could indeed destroy the silk threads at the great cost of burning its bloodline. The lie was that Yue Mingzhu would never have granted it the chance to do so. Had Si Charm not intervened in time, it would have truly perished at the hands of a mere junior at the 8th layer of Golden Core Realm. Si Charm sighed softly. "You should end this battle as quickly as possible and stop falling for their tricks." The blood floodworm was instantly consumed by rage. As a proud war general of the demon clan, subduing a single sect leader should have been as effortless as lifting a hand. Who could have foreseen that the lord of the Yuan sect would be so cunning, even risking her own life to enter the fray, baiting it into a trap by letting herself be gravely injured? This was an utter humiliation. If word of this spread back to the demon clan, it would be mocked by all other war generals. "Vile woman," the blood floodworm roared furiously, its terrifying colossal tail lashing out once again. Yue Mingzhu, who had already lost half her life, still refused to yield. She rolled across the ground, narrowly evading the strike by a hair's breadth. Before the blood floodworm could launch another attack, Yue Mingzhu immediately pulled out a jade case covered in colorful talismans, which looked extremely precious. She shouted sharply, "If you do not wish to die beneath a jade talisman containing a full nascent soul realm strike, get out of my way." Si Charm immediately retreated several hundred zhang away, and the blood floodworm also swiftly retracted its tail and fled into the distance, its face filled with wariness. The thing they feared most was that the Yuan sect leader would indeed possess such a jade talisman. Yue Mingzhu wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth and said grimly, "If you are not afraid of death, then come at me." The blood floodworm gnashed its teeth, but dared not step forward. Si Charm pondered for a moment, then said, "Even if this is a real jade talisman, if she truly had it, why would she not have taken it out earlier? Why wait until she is on the brink of death to use it to threaten us?" The blood floodworm calmed down and thought it over carefully. This was indeed highly suspicious. The jade case looked to be sealed tightly, but the more heavily it was sealed, the more it reeked of a clumsy attempt to hide the truth. Yue Mingzhu sneered, "Then you two are more than welcome to step forward and test it." Spiritual power flowed in her palm, making it look as if she was ready to activate it at any moment. The foot the blood floodworm had just lifted immediately snapped back. It said, "Si Charm, you are the one who claims it is fake. You go test it then." Si Charm said nothing, nor did she move. This was only her speculation. She could not be certain. If there really was a jade talisman inside, she would be the one who died, would she not? Seeing that both of them were intimidated, Yue Mingzhu gripped the jade case tightly and retreated slowly, saying, "Let us both make concessions. You do not wish to die, and I do not wish to waste a..." Precious nascent soul realm jade talisman on the two of you. What do you say? The blood floodworm was seething with rage and resentment. What should have been a guaranteed victory had not only failed to gain it any advantage, but left it battered and humiliated, nearly costing it its life. Most frustrating of all, it could only stand by and watch its enemy leave. Sea Charm, who had remained silent this entire time, suddenly had a glint of sharp light in her eyes. She said, "I apologize, but I still cannot let you leave." As soon as the words left her mouth, her body suddenly turned into shards of ice and shattered. The next instant, a jade-like palm appeared out of nowhere behind Yue Mingzhu, striking her squarely in the back. PFFD completely caught off guard, Yue Mingzhu was sent flying by the strike, the jade case slipping from her grasp and being easily caught by that jade-like hand. In the snow behind Yue Mingzhu, a mermaid formed entirely of condensed ice slowly shed the frost covering its body, returning to its normal form. It turned out that one of Sea Charm's innate abilities was to transform into ice and snow. When facing an enemy too powerful to defeat, she could turn into ice and snow to escape, while instantly reshaping her body from ice and snow in another location. She stared at the jade case in her palm, tore off the seals, and opened it. It was completely empty inside. Sea Charm said, "Using an empty jade case to intimidate us, Hehuan sect leader, I truly admire your courage." If she had not mastered this innate ability, they would have truly been successfully scared off by the Hehuan sect leader. Empty, the blood floodworm laughed in a fit of rage. "Good, very good. You are the first person who has ever dared to toy with me, blood floodworm. You can die now, Hehuan sect leader." Whoosh, Yue Mingzhu, who had been sent flying into midair, only saw a flash of blood, red shadow before her eyes before she was struck heavily once again. The brutal blow sent searing pain through every inch of her body, as if her bones were falling apart, and her consciousness gradually faded as the world spun around her. She thought to herself today, "This is where I die, is it not?" The expected pain of crashing heavily into the ground never came. Instead, she found herself lying in a warm, broad chest at some point. She forced her eyes open, and the face of a handsome young man came into view. Fang Chen. Yue Mingzhu's eyes widened in disbelief. "You, why didn't you leave?" As soon as she regained a sliver of consciousness, she scolded him sharply. Her battle with the two demon emperor war generals had seemed long, but in reality only a few minutes had passed. Fang Chen should have still been on his way to the spirit beasts by this point. His appearance here meant he had never left at all. Fang Chen held her in his arms, looking at the blood covering her entire body, his face filled with self-reproach. He said, "I was such a fool to have believed your lies." It turned out that not long after he had left, Fang Chen calmed down a little and realized something was wrong. Yue Mingzhu had hidden the discovery of Liu Qingxian's corpse from him, claiming she did not want to make him grieve. If that was true, why had she told him about it later? This contradiction made Fang Chen realize Yue Mingzhu was lying, so he immediately rushed back. He never expected that just as he returned, he would see Yue Mingzhu suffering such grievous injuries. Holding her in his arms, Fang Chen felt as if he were clutching a limp, soft cloth doll. Even without a thorough examination, he knew every bone in her body was shattered, and her internal organs had suffered catastrophic damage. Any ordinary mortal would have perished on the spot, yet for some unfathomable reason, her vitality was so tenacious that she still clung to a single wisp of breath. Yue Mingzhu let out a bitter, hacking laugh. "You shouldn't have come back." Cough, cough. She coughed up a mouthful of blood, flecked with fragments of her internal organs. The sliver of time she had painstakingly bought for Fang Chen was now wasted for naught. It seemed they would die here together. Fang Chen said, "Save your breath. Leave the rest to me." He then took out a rejuvenation pill. Yue Mingzhu shook her head. "I already took one. It's useless. The effects of the rejuvenation pill need time to take hold. It takes half an hour to kick in, but the blood flood dragon and sea enchantress won't give us even a single moment of respite." Learning that she had already taken a rejuvenation pill, Fang Chen relaxed slightly. He lifted his head to gaze at the blood flood dragon and sea enchantress, his expression turning grim by the second. He slowly pulled out a jade case and said in a cold, even tone, "You were the ones who attacked my senior sister. You were the ones who beat Yue Mingzhu to this state. If you do not die, I will never be able to swallow this grievance." As if he had heard the most ridiculous joke in the world, the blood flood dragon burst into raucous laughter. "Make us die. What gives you the right?" Fang Chen peeled off the sealing talismans of the jade case one by one and said calmly, "I have the right, because this is a jade talisman containing a single full-powered strike from a nascent soul realm cultivator." The blood flood dragon laughed even more wildly, clutching his stomach as he cackled. Sea enchantress, listen to this little fool. Even the sea enchantress could not help but shake her head at this. Human boy, your companion already tried this trick before. It holds no meaning the second time around. That missing jade talisman was never even recovered by the lord of the Hehuan sect. So how could it fall into the hands of a mere junior disciple? This threat of yours is completely meaningless. A hint of pity crossed her face. You should not have come back. The time your companion risked her life to buy for you is all wasted. The blood flood dragon guffawed. Wasted, not at all. It saves me the trouble of chasing you down. How could that be a waste? This stinking woman wounded me so badly, I would have chased you to the ends of the earth to twist your head off and throw it at her feet. Now, while she still has breath left in her, I can just twist your head off right in front of her eyes. A cruel, sneering grin spread across its face as it transformed into a blurry shadow and lunged forward. Just then, Fang Chen finished peeling off all the seals and slowly opened the jade case. A terrifying, long, sealed spiritual pressure burst forth like surging, roaring tides. The lunging shadow of the blood flood dragon was sent flying backwards by the force of the pressure, slamming into a block of ice before it could barely steady itself. The sea enchantress was also jolted by the sudden burst of spiritual pressure, letting out a series of shocked cries. She immediately transformed into ice and snow, fleeing hundreds of zhang away in an instant. Her usually calm, pretty face was now twisted with terror, and her voice trembled violently. A jade talisman with a nascent soul strike. How do you have it? Yue Mingzhu, who had been drowning in despair, suddenly widened her eyes, letting out an astonished gasp. Fang Chen, this jade talisman. By this point, Fang Chen saw no reason to hide the truth any longer. Fang Chen said, I am the one who killed Tai Bubai. Yue Mingzhu was stunned speechless. Rumors across the world claimed that a certain sect lord, or even a supreme elder, had made the move to kill Tai Bubai and seize the jade talisman, and Yue Mingzhu had fully believed those claims. After all, Tai Bubai was the great elder of the giant sect. His physical body was unfathomably powerful. No one without the strength of a sect lord or supreme elder could possibly kill him. She never could have imagined that the culprit was actually Fang Chen. There was likely not a single person across the entire 9 sects continent who would guess that Fang Chen was the true killer. Fang Chen snorted coldly. Do you know the first thing Tai Bu I did after getting his hands on this jade talisman? He threatened our Qingxian sect to hand over 2 million spirit crystals. Why shouldn't he have died? Yue Mingzhu suddenly understood. No wonder Fang Chen had risked everything to kill him. The money was a secondary concern. Coercing a sect was an unforgivable insult that would infuriate anyone. If she had been in Fang Chen's shoes, she would have torn Tai Bubai to shreds. By now, the blood flood dragon and sea enchantress were caught in a terrible predicament. The blood flood dragon stared at the jade talisman with immense wariness, his face twisted with unwillingness as he snarled, Brat, take this woman and get out of my sight, or I might change my mind. Any second, he was filled with regret right now. Why hadn't he just stayed put and waited for the heaven, burning clam pearl to emerge? Why had he charged out here? He had gained nothing and only landed himself in trouble. Fortunately, letting Yue Mingzhu go was no great loss. By the time she returned with powerful reinforcements, they would have long since fled with the heaven, burning pearl. Only the sea enchantress remained with a hidden look of unease on her face. This was no longer a matter of whether they were willing to let Fang Chen and Yue Mingzhu leave. It was a matter of whether Fang Chen was willing to let them leave. Her heart dropped into her stomach as she saw that Fang Chen indeed had no intention of sparing them. He took the jade talisman and clenched it in his palm, holding Yue Mingzhu with one arm and pointing at the 2 demonic beasts with the other. Let us leave. What a ridiculous thought. I already told you, both of you are going to die. Leaving aside the fact that they had repeatedly harmed Liu Qingxian and Yue Mingzhu, which had thoroughly enraged Fang Chen, the very fact that the existence of the jade talisman had been exposed meant he could never let them leave alive. If they brought the news back to the human world, what unimaginable trouble would that bring? The giant sect would hunt him down madly for revenge, and every major power would stop at nothing to seize the jade talisman from him. Even if he hid in Qingxian's sect for the rest of his days, shielded by the sect lord and supreme elders, it might not be enough to protect him. The allure of a jade talisman containing a nascent soul realm strike was simply too great. There was no other choice. He had to use the jade talisman whether he wanted to or not. Run, the sea enchantress held no delusions of surviving. She transformed into ice and snow, flickering across the snowfield like a ghost. Seeing her flee, the blood flood dragon's scalp tingled with fear. He immediately turned and raced toward Tai Lake. A nascent soul strike held power enough to destroy the heavens and extinguish the earth. Only if he fled back into the unfathomable depths of Tai Lake might he have a chance to survive, even if only barely. How could Fang Chen possibly let them get their wish? Perish? The jade talisman in his palm had already been secretly activated. As Fang Chen hurled it forward, the talisman burst forth with blinding, world, illuminating divine light. The vast white snowfield was already blinding to the eye, but next to the divine light bursting from the jade talisman, it was as dim as the glow of a firefly. The light was so intense that Fang Chen could not keep his eyes open at all. Even Yue Mingzhu could only force her eyelids open to a tiny slit. At the same time, from within the world, destroying radiance, a transcendent, supreme aura slowly unfurled across the land. Crack, crack, the thousand. Li Snowfield could not bear the descent of this overwhelming aura. Ice mountain after ice mountain crumbled, emitting earth-shattering rumbling echoes, while terrifying avalanches raged ceaselessly across the endless snow-capped mountain range. Ahead several, Zhang, high monstrous waves rose up from the flat expanse of Lake Tai, while countless fish and waterfowl fled in frantic terror into the distance. Little White beneath his feet let out a mournful whimper, prostrated itself on the ground in abject fear, trembling uncontrollably. Utter, paralyzing terror appeared on the faces of the Blood Flood Dragon and the Sea Enchantress. The Sea Enchantress shrieked furiously, "Blood Flood Dragon, this is all your fault. If I die, I will haunt you for eternity even as a vengeful ghost. If you had not insisted on attacking, would we have drawn down such a heaven, destroying calamity upon us?" Fear had long erased every other emotion from the Blood Flood Dragon's eyes. It felt not a single shred of regret, for its entire mind was consumed by the singular urge to flee. If it could escape death by some miracle, it swore it would abandon its bloodthirsty nature forever after, and exercise the utmost uncompromising caution when dealing with humans. Alas, it was already far too late. That majestic aura coalesced within the blazing white light into an enormous palm print that blotted out the very sky and sun. It shone with resplendent golden light, the fine lines on its palm clearly visible, even the veins beneath its surface distinct, so lifelike that it seemed truly to be the very hand of the heavenly Tao. It exuded an unmatched, suffocating, oppressive might, as if it had come to purge the world of all life, and descended slowly and unhurriedly toward the Blood Flood Dragon and Sea Enchantress. Boom, boom, boom. Before the palm print even reached the ground, the earth shook violently. Lake Tai, who roiled like water in a roughly jostled bowl, its waters surging over the banks and flooding several lie inland. The fleeing Blood Flood Dragon and Sea Enchantress were like two insects trapped in thick, viscous honey. No matter how desperately they exerted their full power, they moved at a snail's pace, unable to break free, and could only watch helplessly as the world, destroying palm print pressed down mercilessly upon them. The Blood Flood Dragon let out a roar of unwilling fury, and the Sea Enchantress cried out repeatedly in despair, but all their efforts were utterly futile. All sounds were completely drowned out by the earth-shattering roar that erupted as the giant palm finally slammed into the ground. Rumble, the moment the palm print landed, invisible ripples of destruction swept out in all directions. The ancient snowfield that had existed since time immemorial could no longer withstand this heaven, crushing might, and collapsed entirely in an instant. The snowfield beneath Fang Chen's feet shattered instantly, turning into dense, sharp shards of ice that shot out in all directions. He strummed his kin furiously, unleashing a wide-range sound wave attack to shatter the ice shards flying toward their group. Even so, countless ice shards of all sizes still struck their bodies. Little White howled in agony, while Fang Chen and Yue Mingzhu's faces twisted with pain, their jaws twitching uncontrollably. This catastrophic collapse was far from over. It spread rapidly into the distance, and in the span of a single breath, the entire thousand, Li Snowfield was reduced to rubble. Before their eyes, dozens of zhang of water from Lake Tai, who was directly evaporated by the terrifying shockwaves, and the lake bed was faintly visible through the mist. Over half of the living creatures in the lake had perished, their dense, lifeless bodies floating on the surface, bobbing up and down with the still violently churning waves. When the chaos between heaven and earth subsided and the blazing white light gradually faded, Fang Chen and Yue Mingzhu stared at the apocalyptic scene before them in stunned shock, trembling. Involuntarily, this is a single strike from a nascent soul realm cultivator. Yue Mingzhu was paralyzed with terror. As a cultivator at the 8th layer of Golden Core realm, in theory she was only 2 major realms away from the nascent soul realm. But judging from the scale of destruction before her, the gap was far more than 2 realms. It was 100-fold, even 1,000-fold chasm. Nascent soul cultivators and Golden Core cultivators were simply 2 entirely different orders of being. Fang Chen had also not expected that a single nascent soul strike would be so horrifyingly powerful. According to the auction house, this jade talisman had aged greatly over the years, and its power was far below its peak. If it had been at full strength, the destruction would have been unthinkable. Suppressing the shock in his heart, he quickly looked toward the location where the palm print had landed, and his pupils constricted sharply at the sight. At the shore of Lake Tai, lay a gigantic, palm-shaped abyss 100 zhang deep. At the bottom of the abyss, a blood-colored giant crocodile crushed into a pulp had no trace of life left. It was undoubtedly dead beyond all doubt. The blood flood dragon, a renowned general of the demon emperor, had fallen just like that. Suddenly, Fang Chen caught a movement from the corner of his eye. At the edge of the abyss, a bloodied mermaid with a tattered body, and most of its tail missing, was crawling out with great difficulty, heading toward Lake Tai. It was the heavily injured sea enchantress. She had actually survived. Fang Chen's gaze turned icy cold. The sea enchantress looked back, her face twisted with burning hatred. At the last moment, she had burned her bloodline power to forcefully break free of the palm prince lock, and had barely fled to the edge of the strike. That was why she had only lost a portion of her body and survived with a crippled form. Otherwise, she would have ended up just like the blood flood dragon, crushed into a meat patty. "Human, you wait," she snarled venomously, then used the last of her strength to rush toward Lake Tai. Yue Mingzhu's face changed drastically, and she struggled to stand up. "We can't let her escape. If news of what happened here leaks out, you will face trouble greater than the heavens themselves." But her injuries were too severe. She swayed unsteadily and fell back into Fang Chen's arms. Fang Chen said calmly, "Rest well. Do you think I would ever let her get away?" Yue Mingzhu said with great difficulty, "Even though she is heavily injured, she is still a general at the 9th layer of Golden Core Realm. How can you possibly stop her?" Without the nascent soul jade talisman, Fang Chen, who was only at the 2nd layer of Golden Core Realm, simply did not have the strength to intercept the sea enchantress in time. Fang Chen said no more, drawing the sword tightly wrapped in cloth strips from his back with a reverse flick of his wrist. He swung it lightly, and boundless sharp edge shredded every last scrap of the cloth, revealing a glimmering purple longsword suffused with spiritual light. "Spirit artifact." Yue Mingzhu's pupils shrank sharply as she cried out in horror. "It is actually a spirit artifact." "You must understand, the 2 finest swords across the 9 sects are still only top-grade magical artifacts, one of which is wielded by the strongest Supreme Elder, Sword King Liu Qingxian. Fang Chen, a mere disciple, had been hiding a spirit artifact. How was that possible? How many hidden aces did Fang Chen truly hold? She was already somewhat dazed by the revelation. "It is already too late." Yue Mingzhu stared at the sea charm that was nearly at the lakeside, her tone urgent and helpless. Fang Chen said indifferently, "She cannot escape." Immediately, he rubbed his palms together, and the purple sword spun at high velocity. To Yue Mingzhu's stunned disbelief, the purple sword traversed the void, transforming into a purple rainbow that pierced through the sea charm in an instant, pinning her firmly to the ground. Yue Mingzhu covered her mouth, her eyes wide with shock as she exclaimed, "Sword control technique. That is Senior Liu Qingxian's sword control technique. Was this technique not rumored to have been lost? How did Fang Chen master it?" Fang Chen pulled her into his arms, his figure flashing repeatedly as he quickly arrived before the sea charm. At this moment, she let out waves of miserable wails, her face twisted with utter sorrow and agony. Fang Chen harbored no mercy. He drew the morning frost sword and slashed straight towards her neck. "Wait!" Yue Mingzhu suddenly called out to stop Fang Chen, saying, "This is a living demon race war general. Even bringing her back alive will count as a tremendous merit." But Fang Chen had no intention of letting the sea charm off so easily. He shook his head coldly. "She harmed my senior sister and you. Death is her only deserved fate. I care nothing for this trivial merit." With that, he raised his sword to strike again. Yue Mingzhu hurriedly spoke up, "Spare her life. Though the sea charm also attacked me, she is not as cruel and bloodthirsty as that blood flood dragon. Besides, her strength is formidable. Killing her would be a terrible waste." Hearing this, Fang Chen finally lowered his sword, then frowned and said, "What use is her great strength? At this cultivation level, can she even be tamed into a spirit beast? Taming spirit beasts requires training demonic beasts from infancy. The sea charm is already a war general. How could she possibly be tamed?" Yue Mingzhu curled her lip disdainfully. "That paltry skill of the spirit beast sect is only good for taming ordinary demonic beasts. Our Joyful Union sect has no shortage of methods to deal with powerful great demons. I guarantee she will be docile and utterly loyal." Fang Chen was taken aback. The Joyful Union sect has such abilities. He could not help but heave a sigh of relief. Then congratulations to your Joyful Union Sect for obtaining a powerful demonic beast combat asset. Yue Mingzhu said somewhat resentfully, if it were a male, I would consider taking it for myself, but it is a female, and so breathtakingly beautiful at that. It can only go to you, you little rascal. What do you mean it is a bargain for me? Fang Chen muttered to himself, wondering if the method Yue Mingzhu mentioned was even proper. Roughly half an hour later, the sea charm's gaze shifted from shock to despair little by little, for in that short span of time, she had watched the heavily injured, dying Yue Mingzhu recover. Completely, you humans actually possess such a divine elixir. The sea charm sighed deeply. Our demon race's invasion of human territory was truly a foolhardy decision. Yue Mingzhu would never tell her that this type of elixir is also extremely rare among humans, and that she could only get her hands on one by staying by Fang Chen's side. Heh, what a stunning beauty. Yue Mingzhu squatted down, pinched her chin, and said playfully, if not for you, I would have killed the blood flood dragon long ago and retreated unscathed. When it comes to the trouble you caused. Me, you are far worse than the blood flood dragon. The sea charm was still pinned firmly to the ground by the purple sword, unable to even move, let alone fight back. Yet her expression remained calm, as if she had long cast life and death aside. Kill me or torture me, do as you please. Her casual, matter-of-fact demeanor radiated unyielding, fearless defiance in the face of death. Yue Mingzhu's smile grew more profound. Kill you? Wouldn't that be far too kind? Only then did the sea charm's pretty face show a hint of change, her elegant eyebrows lifting slightly. You will not kill me. Be careful. You are keeping a scourge by your side. Yue Mingzhu rummaged in her sleeve for a long while, before finally pulling out a somewhat worn wooden box. How many years has it been? I thought I would never use this. I was even planning to throw it into the treasure vault and forget about it. Who would have thought it would finally come in handy? Today, she opened the wooden box with her slender jade fingers, revealing a withered, tattered collar. At first glance, it looked like an ordinary piece of jewelry, but the inside of the collar was dotted with dense, sharp barbs, marking it clearly as a tool of torture. Seemingly sensing the sinister aura of the object, the sea charm struggled slightly and asked, "What are you doing?" Yue Mingzhu explained, "This is the karmic grudge necklace, forged 100 years ago by a senior of my Joyful Union Sect who poured his entire life's work into it. He once loved someone deeply, gave everything he had for them, yet received not a single response. In his rage, he forged this necklace. Once it is placed on the designated target, they will submit to the wearer forever. If they so much as harbor a thought of resisting, they will suffer unbearable agony. Of course, that senior ultimately could not bear to use it, and when he passed it down to us later generations, he explicitly forbade using it on other humans." She held up the necklace, sizing it against the sea charm's snow-white, elegant neck, and giggled. "The size is perfect, as if it was custom made for you." Upon learning the purpose of the karmic grudge necklace, the sea charm thought of the legendary slave rings humans use to enslave demonic beasts. This necklace operated on exactly the same principle. "You might as well kill me. I would rather die than become a slave to your human race." Yue Mingzhu said nonchalantly, "You speak of death at every turn, as if you have no loved ones waiting for you back in the demon race." These words made the sea charm's eyes flicker, and hot anger surged in her previously calm gaze. "You are utterly vile." "Thank you for the compliment." Yue Mingzhu shrugged, then tossed the karmic grudge necklace to Fang Chen. "Drip a drop of your essence blood and inject your soul power into it. The former refines the necklace, the latter controls her mind. A single drop of essence blood is enough, but do not skimp on the soul power. Otherwise, she will be able to break free of your control." Fang Chen held the karmic grudge necklace in his palms, utterly speechless. The original purpose of this artifact was truly somewhat sinister, enslaving the person you love who does not return your feelings. Fortunately, that Joyful Union Sect senior came to his senses, suppressed the evil thoughts in his heart, and only permitted it to be used on demonic beasts. Since it was a demonic beast, why would Fang Chen have the slightest objection? He immediately dripped a drop of his essence blood, and did not stint on his soul power either. Enduring agonizing pain, he severed a strand of it and injected it into the item. Given the strength of his soul, no demonic beast below the nascent soul realm could ever break free of his control, not to mention he had laid down a staggering number of restrictions. Even if the sea siren attained human form in the future, it would be impossible for her to shake off his restraints for a very long time. Done, Fang Chen handed the collar back to Yue Mingzhu. "Stop, don't come any closer," the sea siren shrieked. Yue Mingzhu grabbed her by the throat in one motion and said coldly, "Behave yourself. Keep squawking, and I'll find you a lardy, lecherous pig of a master." A pretty mermaid like you tugs at even my heartstrings, let alone those perverted fools. Seemingly truly frightened, the sea siren's struggles ceased for a brief moment. Seizing this opportunity, Yue Mingzhu fastened the collar around her neck. By the time she realized what was happening, the barbs on the collar had already pierced into her flesh, tightening continuously. Amid the sea siren's shrill, agonized howls, the collar squeezed deeper and deeper until it vanished entirely beneath her skin, leaving only a hideous, ring-shaped scar carved into her neck. What are you standing there gawking for? Don't you have a rejuvenation pill for your precious spirit beast? It would be such a shame for this great beauty to have a permanent scar on her neck. Yue Mingzhu rolled her eyes at the dazed Fang Chen, who responded with a dumbfounded "oh." He took out a rejuvenation pill, but the sea siren clamped her mouth shut, glaring at him with unbridled hatred. "I don't want anything from you, get away." Fang Chen frowned. Was this Qingyuan binding collar even working? He barked, "Open your mouth." The sea siren still clenched her jaw in defiance, when a twisting, knife-like pain suddenly erupted from the depths of her soul. This agony was several times worse than any physical pain she had ever endured. Even though she was a hardened general who feared neither injury nor death, she could not help rolling on the ground, wailing pitifully. Within moments she was soaked in cold sweat, her face as pale as paper, yet the pain did not fade in the slightest. If anything, it grew even more intense. Finally, she could bear it no longer and gasped, I'll open my mouth." With that, her soft, rosy lips slowly parted in obedience to Fang Chen, and the searing pain in her soul vanished as abruptly as it had come. A look of utter relief washed over her face. The memory of the hellish torment she had just endured made her shudder with fear, and she now understood firsthand what it meant to wish she were dead. Fang Chen was stunned. The collar was so powerful that even a lofty demon general could be subdued so easily. He flicked his finger, shooting the rejuvenation pill into her mouth. As the medicinal effect kicked in, the hideous scar on her neck healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Fang Chen quickly drew his purple sword as well, to help her recover fully. Looking at the purple sword, Yue Mingzhu felt a flash of envy, then her expression turned grave. "Don't take this sword out in public again. You may have hidden your face when you killed Tai Bu. By that day, but you exposed this purple sword. The giant sect has already notified all other sects, offering a heavy reward for anyone who finds a warrior wielding a purple sword." Fang Chen's heart skipped a beat, so the giant sect had never given up investigating Tai Bubai's death. Fortunately, he had always been exceptionally cautious, keeping the purple sword wrapped in cloth at all times, and only ever drawing it when no one was around. If not for that, the giant sect would have tracked him down long ago. "I understand." Fang Chen immediately rewrapped the purple sword with cloth. Yue Mingzhu then picked up her Tianqian silk thread, a faint look of sorrow on her face. This was a treasure that had been with her for many years, her most trusted and effective weapon, and now it was completely destroyed. "What is that?" Fang Chen asked. Yue Mingzhu jumped, quickly coiling it up and shoving it into her sleeve, stammering, nothing." Fang Chen had seen disciples of the Hehuan sect use Tianqian silk thread before. If he recognized the item, her identity would be exposed. "Oh, then why are you acting so sneaky?" Fang Chen asked suspiciously, stepping towards her. Just then, 100-yang-tall crimson wave exploded from the center of Tai Lake, billowing with searing heat, as if a volcano was erupting beneath the lake bed. The sea siren was taken aback, turning around and crying out, "The heaven, burning clam pearl is early." She cut herself off halfway, glancing warily at Fang Chen to gauge his reaction. Her heart sank when she saw him staring at her calmly. Continue. The sea siren almost defied his order. This was a supreme treasure the demon emperor had waited 10 long years for, and they had even sent 2 trusted generals this time to ensure nothing went wrong. How could she let outsiders know of it? But the moment the thought of defiance crossed her mind, that searing soul pain erupted again. The horrific memories from earlier flooded her mind, and she blurted out in terror, I'll talk. The heaven, burning clam pearl, is maturing ahead of schedule. Normally, it should have appeared 3 days from now, but the strike from that nascent soul jade talisman earlier gave it a massive surge of extra energy, so it's appearing early. Heaven, burning clam pearl. Fang Chen looked thoughtful, as if he had heard the name somewhere before. Yue Mingzhu, standing beside him, cried out in shock. What? The heaven, burning clam pearl truly exists in this world? Isn't that the legendary treasure that can help a demon emperor break through the soul formation realm? All those years ago, the late nascent soul realm peak tiger demon who unified the demon race searched his entire life for the heaven, burning clam pearl, and never found it. And there's actually one here. Her gaze was heavy with gravity. Her eyes flickered with urgency as she said, "This clam pearl must be destroyed, or the human race will face catastrophic disaster. Lead the way." She could not bear to imagine the terrible consequences if a soul formation realm demonic beast emerged among the demon race. This pearl must never fall into demon hands. It had to be destroyed. The sea siren resisted, shouting, "You can't destroy it. Our race desperately needs it." But Fang Chen barked an order, "Lead the way." The sea siren could defy him no longer, turning to swim towards Tai Lake. When she noticed the two people behind her were not moving, she looked back. The two of them were fretting over how to go underwater. The sea siren hesitated for a moment, then spat out a bubble that enveloped Fang Chen alone, saying, "This bubble will allow you to breathe underwater for 1 hour, young master." She then dove straight into the water. Yue Mingzhu let out an angry laugh. "You're pettier than a needle's tip. Just because I made you Fang Chen's slave, you hold a grudge against me, you petty thing, as if I can't go underwater without you." She fumbled in her sleeve and pulled out a water-repelling pearl, popping it into her mouth. Fang Chen muttered, "You sure have a lot of good stuff. Fumble around in your sleeve, and you always pull out some weird, amazing treasure." Hearing this, Yue Mingzhu clenched her fist involuntarily and punched him lightly. "You have the nerve to say that. You pull out a jade talisman that can unleash a nascent soul-level strike one second and a spirit artifact purple sword the next. Either one of those is a peerless treasure that makes me green with envy." Truly, if it were anyone else, she would have killed them and stolen their treasures hundreds of times over. Only Fang Chen could make her hold back. "Come on, your pretty little spirit pet is worried you can't keep up again." Yue Mingzhu glanced at the sea siren, who was looking back at them from ahead, her tone a little jealous. Fang Chen was speechless. "You're jealous of a demonic beast." Shaking his head, he dove into the water. Not long after, led by the sea siren, they dove all the way to the deepest part of the lake, stopping in front of this underwater palace. On the lintel of the main hall, there was a line of text covered in algae. Fang Chen looked at it, surprised. "These are actually demon runes. Could this underwater palace be related to the demon race?" Yue Mingzhu, who could read demon runes, said, "Li Huo Heavenly Hall." She clicked her tongue in wonder. This should be a hall from the palace of some ancient demon supreme. No one knows why it fell down here. Demon supreme. Fang Chen had no idea what kind of existence that was, but he keenly noticed that there were many broken marks around this isolated hall, indicating that it had once been part of a larger palace complex, confirming the theory that it had fallen here. It was even possible that Tai Lake itself was the massive crater formed by the enormous impact of the palace crashing down, which later filled with water to become the lake we know today. "It's inside," the sea siren said, leading the way ahead. Fang Chen did not follow immediately, instead taking out 2 copper coins. He put one in his mouth, ready to activate it at any time, and handed the other to Yue Mingzhu. "This spirit treasure has been gestating for who knows how many years. It most likely has developed spiritual intelligence. Since it belongs to the demon race, the two of us humans may be judged as enemies. It's best to be cautious." Yue Mingzhu took the copper coin, saying, "You're as cautious as ever. I was just about to remind you of that." She had no doubt that the sea siren was not leading them here out of her own free will. Deliberately not mentioning the dangers, she was most likely planning to use the heaven, burning clam pearl to kill them both. Fang Chen rolled his eyes at her. "Remind me, just don't cause trouble for me like you did back in that nascent soul cave at the bottom of the cliff, and we'll be fine." With that, he stepped inside. Yue Mingzhu ground her teeth. He still holds this old grudge. She immediately stepped into the great hall as well. This independent great hall held no superfluous furnishings, standing completely empty save for a massive ancient giant clam measuring 3 zhang across, bound firmly in the very center of the hall by 9 iron chains, unable to move an inch. From the exposed gap gushed torrents of searing heat akin to molten magma. Visible to the naked eye, a fist-sized, deep crimson iron sphere that looked as though it had been heated to its absolute limit came into view. Even across the vast expanse of the hall, Fang Chen could feel the terrifying heat radiating off it. He had no doubt that if this object struck him, he would be instantly vaporized into nothing but mist. The sea sprite obediently retreated to one side, falling silent, faint traces of hope hidden in her gaze. As sharp and perceptive as Yue Mingzhu was, she spoke with a half-smile. "What, you hope I will attack it? That way, it will strike back at me." A flash of panic crossed the sea sprite's face, but she instantly composed herself. "Whether you destroy it or take it, how could a being like me influence your decisions?" Yue Mingzhu stared at her for a moment, confirming that the clam pearl could indeed not be attacked rashly, lest it trigger catastrophic danger. Yet if it were not destroyed, the hidden danger would be far greater. Buzz. Suddenly, the giant clam began to tremble, or more precisely, the clam pearl within it was vibrating. A terrifying surge of crimson heat erupted from the narrow gap. The expressions of Fang Chen and Yue Mingzhu shifted drastically, and they hurriedly retreated from the great hall, only to see the crimson heat flow sweep up a mass of lake water, bursting through the surface like a tornado. That was the source of the earlier water wave. This time, however, the clam pearl's vibration did not cease for a moment, like a suppressed volcano that could no longer be contained, erupting continuously. As the crimson heat flow grew increasingly violent, even the sea sprite dared not remain where she was. With a solemn expression, she swam to Fang Chen's side, a strange light flickering in her beautiful eyes. The heaven, burning clam pearl is about to emerge. Asterisk bang, 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 asterisk as the heat continued to build, it finally reached the maximum limit the giant clam shell could withstand. With a deafening crash, the two halves of the clam shell were blown apart, and the heaven, burning clam pearl, which had been gestating for countless eons, finally made its appearance into the world. It hovered in midair, its surface wreathed in flickering, shifting flames, like an excited child. The temperature of the flames was shockingly terrifying. Fang Chen instantly noticed the surrounding lake water heating up rapidly, boiling within moments. The entire Tai Lake became like a cauldron of boiling water, and under the extreme heat, its water level plummeted sharply. In the span of a single tea break, the water of Tai Lake had been evaporated to a depth of barely one's calf. Asterisk hiss, asterisk Fang Chen drew a sharp breath of cold air. You actually want to attack something like this? It can burn all the water of an entire Tai Lake dry without even trying. The power of this clam pearl is 100 times more terrifying than we imagined. A faint trace of fear also crossed Yue Mingzhu's face. Fang Chen was protected by an energy bubble and felt little effect, but even from hundreds of zhang away, she felt her entire body burning unbearably. Never mind if this thing struck her directly, even a single stray spark would melt a massive hole through her body. This was absolutely not something she could contend with. We leave now. She realized with a jolt of terror that this clam pearl was the most dangerous existence here, far more terrifying than even blood and the sea sprite working together. Fang Chen was also extremely alarmed, retreating silently, praying inwardly that this clam pearl would bear no ill will toward their group. Otherwise, he could not fathom how to deal with such a terrifyingly dangerous object. He feared that no one could control it save for a great cultivator of the nascent soul realm. However, the moment they moved, the heaven, burning clam pearl seemed to sense them, rotating around them as though sizing up its observers. Barely a single breath later, the two of them heard words that sent a great shock through their hearts. Humans, my master said, the demon race's palace is forbidden to humans. Trespassers shall be killed. I must obey my master's commands. Hearing this, the sea sprite's face lit up with delight. She had long known the heaven, burning clam pearl, would give birth to spiritual intelligence. Now that it had gained sentience, it would never tolerate humans lingering near by coveting it. This way, Fang Chen would certainly die. Once he was dead, the karmic necklace around his neck would become ownerless, and she could find a way to take it. At this thought, her heart was filled with anticipation. Cold sweat poured down Yue Mingzhu's back, and she spoke hastily. Wait a moment, look around you. Does this place still look like your master's palace? The heaven, burning clam pearl, rotated its form, remaining stunned for a long while. Where is this? Is this not the demon lord's divine hall? Yue Mingzhu coaxed it gently. Little clam pearl, as you can see, this place is not the demon lord's divine hall, and we are not trespassers. Your master's order does not apply here. The heaven burning clam pearl nodded, emitting a childish, tender voice. That makes sense. You are not trespassers. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Yue Mingzhu's lips twitched. It even knew how to apologize. It was quite the well-behaved little thing. But the very next sentence it spoke sent a chill of terror down Yue Mingzhu's spine once more. The heaven, burning clam pearl spoke again. But my master said, when I am born, those who welcome me will definitely be of the demon race, and those who wish to destroy me will definitely be humans. You too are humans, so you must be here to destroy me, right? My master said I should strike first, so I still have to kill you. As soon as it finished speaking, the flames covering its body surged violently. In an instant, Yue Mingzhu's clothes burst into flame with a soft whoosh, and she felt as though she had fallen into molten magma, searing her with unbearable agony. She would be burned to a cinder in no more than 10 breaths. This was merely it releasing a fraction of its temperature, with no actual attack launched. Even so, it was enough to burn a cultivator at the 8th layer of the Golden Core realm to death alive. Its terrifying power was simply unfathomable. Who said I am of the human race? Before anyone knew it, a faint, indistinct layer of demonic Kai had appeared around Fang Chen, enveloping him completely. Upon closer inspection, one would see he held a transparent orb in his mouth, which was none other than the illusion mist demon core he had seized from Liu. If Yue Mingzhu could use it to conceal her demonic aura, why could Fang Chen not use it to mask his human aura? Coupled with the innate demonic kai of the illusion, mist demon core, what else was he, if not a member of the demon race? The delighted look on the sea sprite's face froze, and she stared dumbfounded. Wait, how could he pull a trick like that? Would the heaven, burning clam pearl actually believe him? You really are of the demon race, here to welcome me. The heaven, burning clam pearl emitted a surprised tone, hurriedly withdrawing all its flames. I'm sorry, I misunderstood you. But what is the human next to you doing here? Fang Chen patted Yue Mingzhu at his side and said, she is my captive. The heaven, burning clam pearl suddenly understood. So that's how it is? The sea sprite was so anxious she nearly burst, opening her mouth to shout they are. Shut up, Fang Chen barked. Excruciating pain in her soul immediately made the sea sprite clamp her mouth shut, standing obediently in place, not daring to utter another word. She feared that before the heaven, burning clam pearl could kill Fang Chen, he would be able to kill her first via the karmic necklace. The heaven, burning clam pearl exclaimed in shock, even she is your slave, you are really powerful. Fang Chen replied, you flatter me. There are plenty of demon race members, far more powerful than I am. Now that you have been born, what are your plans? Would you like to come travel around with me? The sea sprite gaped in shock. Wait, he actually wanted to trick it into going to human territory. The heaven, burning clam pearl shook its form and said, I want to go find my master. Thank you for your kind offer, big brother. We shall meet again if fate wills it. It made a spinning turn to depart, when it suddenly seemed to notice something, shooting through the air to stop right in front of Fang Chen. This gave Fang Chen a terrible fright, and Yue Mingzhu also paled in shock. Fortunately, it only circled back and forth around Fang Chen's chest continuously, making no aggressive moves. How strange, truly odd. Why do I sense such a familiar aura on this elder brother? It feels as if I have encountered it somewhere before. Fang Chen steadied his mind, pulled open his robe, and revealed the little Qilin that was fast asleep. The blaze heavenly clam pearl immediately lit up with joy. It's him, it's really him. Hey, wake up and play with me, we definitely met in the past. The little Qilin was sleeping soundly when it was woken by the chattering noise, immediately flying into a grouchy rage. It lifted its tiny claw in fury and swatted the clam pearl straight to the ground, baring its fangs and growling. What cursed thing is making so much racket? The blaze heavenly clam pearl crashed into the ground, instantly melting a bottomless pit wreathed in thick black smoke through the lake bed, with threads of magma surging up from the depths of hole. Yue Mingzhu swallowed hard. Just a casual impact on the ground had melted clean through the earth, all the way to the magma deep underground. This temperature was unspeakably horrifying. She suspected that even cultivators at the nascent soul realm might not necessarily be able to control this object. Fang Chen was also drenched in cold sweat from fright. If even a single spark had splashed off the blaze heavenly clam pearl when it struck the ground, he and Yue Mingzhu would have been incinerated on the spot. After a long while, the blaze heavenly clam pearl finally emerged from the pit, drifting unsteadily around the little Qilin as it asked weakly, Don't you want to play with me? The little Qilin lay back down and waved its claw impatiently. Who wants to play with a little brat? Go on, get out of here, don't bother me. With that, it covered its eyes with its short little legs and promptly fell back into a deep sleep. The blaze heavenly clam pearl looked utterly dejected and complained pitifully to Fang Chen, Elder brother, he won't play with me. Cold sweat beaded on Fang Chen's forehead. Who would dare play with you? One wrong move and they'd be vaporized on the spot. He smiled gently. Wait until it finishes sleeping, then you can come play with it. The blaze heavenly clam pearl said reluctantly, Fine, I'll go find my master first. If I can't find him, I'll come back to play with him. Fang Chen's hair stood on end the moment he heard that, cursing inwardly, Don't you fucking dare come back. The blaze heavenly clam pearl spun around and shot high into the sky, then abruptly paused. My master said the spirit flesh of that vast sea giant clam is a precious treasure with unimaginably wondrous effects for cultivators at the Golden Core realm. You can distribute it to your subordinates to consume. With that, it departed completely. Even so, the residual heat it left behind still shrouded the entire surrounding land. Only then did Fang Chen realize to his shock that the snowfield, which even nascent soul jade talismans could not melt, had completely thawed. As far as the eye could see, there was only bare earth and mountains, not a single flake of snow left. A chill ran down Fang Chen's spine. Good heavens, I thought we'd stumbled upon a rare treasure born into the world, but it turned out to be a peerless, ferocious entity descending upon us. Thinking of Yue Mingzhu's initial terrible idea to destroy it, he couldn't help turning to her with a grin and asking, Do you still want to destroy it now? At that moment, he noticed that all of Yue Mingzhu's clothes had been burned away, leaving her completely exposed to his gaze. Yue Mingzhu froze for a moment before realizing she was entirely naked. She immediately covered her chest with both hands, her fair jade complexion flushing bright red in an instant. She snapped angrily, "Stop looking already." Fang Chen hastily averted his gaze and said quickly, "I didn't do it on purpose." "Does being unintentional make it okay to look?" Yue Mingzhu ground her teeth in fury, flashing behind Xiao Bai in an instant. She fumbled to take out the spare clothes she had prepared. Dressing was an action she had done 1,000 times over, yet she suddenly became clumsy and fumbling, unable to get them on properly. A long while. Her eyes, which were almost misted over with embarrassment, blazed with rage. Damned clam pearl, learning bad things at such a young age, burning a girl's clothes. You lewd, shameless thing. Fang Chen rubbed his nose and muttered under his breath, "It's not like I haven't seen it before. Is there any need for such a big reaction?" Yue Mingzhu's face turned even redder. How dare this guy act like he's in the right? I'm not even his woman. What right does he have to look at me whenever he wants? Fang Chen walked to the front of the great hall. The palace had long been destroyed, and the 2 shells of the giant clam had also been blown away. A huge mass of glistening, translucent spirit flesh, as soft and white as snow tofu, came into view. A flicker of greedy heat flashed in Fang Chen's eyes. The master respected by the Blaze Heavenly Clam Pearl was an existence of unimaginable power. If even that entity said this was a precious treasure, how could the giant clam's spirit flesh be anything less than extraordinary? He stepped closer to examine it, and an astonishing, exotic fragrance hit his nose. Even with his perfect foundation, establishment realm 9th layer cultivation, just a single whiff gave him a faint sign of further improvement. He had already cultivated to the peak of the foundation establishment realm, and still experienced such effects. If a cultivator at foundation establishment 8th layer 8, even a mouthful wouldn't. They break through to the 9th layer instantly. This was even more valuable than the fortune obtained from the sword forest of the 10,000 Swords sect. The mass of flesh before him was enough to be divided into over 1,000 portions. If he brought it back to the Azure Cloud Sect, wouldn't Foundation Establishment 8th layer cultivators be everywhere overnight, and Foundation Establishment 9th layer cultivators as common as dogs? Furthermore, it was also believed to have extraordinary effects for Golden Core Realm cultivators. Yue Mingzhu, who had finished dressing, walked over following the scent, her eyes shining. What an incredibly powerful spirit flesh. Even 3 mouthfuls would be more than enough to break through to Golden Core 9th layer. If there is enough of it, breaking through to the perfect Golden Core 9th layer in a short time is not even impossible. This is a treasure, a heaven-sent treasure, far more valuable than any secret realm. Her eyes shone brighter and brighter the longer she looked, until she finally cried out in excitement. Fang Chen said, "We'll split it evenly between us. With this much spirit flesh, even half will be more than enough for the Azure Cloud Sect's needs." Yue Mingzhu thought for a moment, then said, "I shall take 3 parts, you take 7. Whether it be slaying the blood mosquitoes or deceiving the heaven, burning clam pearl on this trip, all credit belongs to you. At most, I only helped you tame the sea charm, so taking 3 parts is already me taking advantage of your generosity." Fang Chen nodded, not inclined to quibble over trivial matters. "Fine, we shall split the spoils, as you suggest." In mere moments, both of them had filled a massive sack each, while the sea charm watched from the side, overwhelmed with envy. The reason she had willingly come here to await the emergence of the heaven, burning clam pearl, was not solely for the great merit it would bring. The giant clam's spirit flesh was also an immensely alluring prize. As a member of the demon race, this spirit flesh held far greater temptation for her than ordinary treasures. She was already at the 9th layer of the Golden Core realm. If she ate even a few mouthfuls of the clam flesh, breaking through to the perfected 9th layer of Golden Core would be all but guaranteed. Noticing her odd expression, Fang Chen pulled out a lump of spirit flesh, handed it to her, and asked, "You wish to eat this?" The sea charm's heart surged with excitement. She forced down her joy and spoke humbly, "One should not accept unearned rewards. I am not worthy of this." She had assumed that after her show of politeness, Fang Chen would insist on giving it to her. Who would have expected Fang Chen to simply take it back, and said flatly, "Good that you understand. If you want clam flesh, exchange it for merit." Why would he ever reward her with such precious clam flesh? It was already an act of extraordinary mercy that he had not punished her for the petty schemes she harbored earlier. The sea charm's fair jade face flushed red, shame and fury roiling in her eyes as she cursed inwardly. This brat is truly no better than a beast. Just then Fang Chen asked again, "Tell me, where is the human patrol squad that arrived here several days ago?" The sea charm replied reluctantly, "They are hiding deep within a glacier. The blood mosquitoes cannot reach it, and they dare not come out." Hearing this, Fang Chen breathed a long sigh of relief. Just as he had predicted, Liu Qingxian was not dead, but had hidden herself ahead of time with quick wits. He barked, "Lead the way." Hundreds of li away, a colossal glacier crack stretched several li deep beneath the ground. The depths of the crack were not shrouded in total darkness. A ball of fire illuminated the dark underground completely. Liu Qingxian had grown much thinner, but her beauty still shone brilliantly under the firelight. Beside her stood Wang Qingxian, along with elite disciples from 3 other sects. Their cultivation bases were either at the Golden Core realm or the 9th layer of the Foundation Establishment realm, forming a rarely seen alliance of formidable forces. Yet they were trapped at the bottom of the crack, facing grave peril. Watch out, that icy wind is coming again. Bizarre gales blew periodically through the narrow ice gorge crack, and the wind was not just bone, chillingly frigid. It could freeze and maim a cultivator's body. Even more terrifying, it carried a strange cold poison. Once it entered the body, it would turn a person's blood vessels into solid ice, causing rapid death. In just a few short days, everyone had been struck by it at least once. They all relied on a bottle of rejuvenation elixirs Liu Qingxian carried, which pulled them back from the brink of death time and time again. Liu Qingxian had been frantically completing missions for nearly a month, and had already used several rejuvenation elixirs. Over these past few days, the last remaining pills had been entirely exhausted. If anyone was struck by the cold poison again, they could only wait for death. Listening to the howl of the wind, all present paled drastically and scrambled for cover behind shelters. Liu Qingxian also quickly hid behind an ice pillar. The strange icy wind scraped past the ice pillar, making a creaking, gnawing sound as if tens of thousands of insects were devouring the ice. Liu Qingxian did not dare to even breathe loudly, waiting for the gale to die down. Only after a long time did she dare to poke her head out. "Senior Sister Liu, let's just force our way out." A disciple who had been on constant edge and had not slept for several nights, had dark bags under his eyes and bloodshot gaze. His spirit already stretched to its breaking point. "This icy wind comes every now and then. No one dares to sleep. We can only stay alert at all times. We can hold on for 1, 2, 3 days, but it's already been 10 days. Even a person forged of iron cannot endure this." Liu Qingxian shook her head. She was also haggard and exhausted, her mind even starting to grow fuzzy, but she still retained her clear sense of reason. "We cannot go out, wait for rescue. The thing that attacked us is most likely Blood Flood Dragon, a general under the Demon Emperor's command. Records state it is cunning, ferocious, bloodthirsty, and cruel. It cannot breach our hiding place, but if we go out, we will not escape alive." The crowd was helpless, their spirits low. With the Blood Flood Dragon lurking outside and the cold poison icy wind haunting them inside, every single day was torture. Whoosh, suddenly, a gust of wind appeared without warning. Everyone had just let their guard down. No one was prepared. Before they could even hide, a gust of wind that made the ice walls creak lunged straight for Liu Qingxian. She was in the middle of speaking to that disciple, her attention scattered, and by the time she noticed, it was already too late. At the critical moment, Wang Qingxian, who was beside her, suddenly leaped out and blocked in front of her. The strong wind hit his face, and Wang Qingxian looked as if he had been poisoned, his body going limp on the spot, collapsing to the ground, unable to move. "Senior brother Wang has been hit. To save senior sister Liu, he used his own body to block the icy wind. It's over. We have no more rejuvenation elixirs. Senior brother Wang's cold poison will flare up any moment now." Liu Qingxian froze for a moment, then her face paled drastically. She quickly crouched down, full of self-blame. "Senior brother Wang, what are you doing?" Wang Qingxian stared blankly at the sky and gave a bleak smile. "What is there to question about dying for the one I love?" As soon as these words were spoken, the 3 disciples from other sects were greatly moved. It turned out Wang Qingxian had been in love with Liu Qingxian all this time. Liu Qingxian said hurriedly, "Senior brother Wang, don't speak. Focus on circulating your cultivation method. If the cold poison is not too severe, you might still be able to force it out." She was avoiding the topic. Having known each other for many years, she was naturally aware of Wang Qingxian's feelings for her, but he was not the person she held affections for. Wang Qingxian let out a cold snort in his heart. "You're only thinking about Fang Chen, aren't you? He had not been struck by any cold poison at all." That wind just now was something he had conjured on purpose. Calculating the days, the powerful cultivators sent by Sunset City to rescue them should arrive soon. The day they would be freed was not far off. If he did not seize this perfect opportunity to win Liu Qingxian over now, he would never have another chance. Though his method was dishonorable, to get the woman he wanted, he could not afford to care about such trivialities. Cough, cough, he pretended to be extremely weak, coughed violently twice, and said, Junior sister, my greatest wish is to marry you. Stop talking. Liu Qingxian was frantic with worry. If Wang Qingxian died because of her, she would feel guilty for the rest of her life. If I don't say it now, I'll never get the chance to say it later. Wang Qingxian forced a smile, his speech already starting to falter, looking as if he was on his last legs. Junior sister, can you fulfill my wish before I die? Marry me, even if it's just for this moment. As long as Liu Qingxian agreed now, it would count as a marriage pact, and it would still be valid once they returned to the outside world. The three disciples from other sects had no idea this was a trick Wang Qingxian was playing, and were deeply moved. What a devoted lover. Senior sister Liu, you should agree. Senior brother Wang is dying. Do you really want him to die with unfulfilled regrets? Liu Qingxian bit her scarlet lip tightly. She was deeply moved, but agreeing to marry Wang Qingxian was a promise that must be honored. Even if Wang Qingxian died, it would mean the two had once had a betrothal agreement. Did someone like her still deserve Fang Chen? Cough, cough, cough. Wang Qingxian bit down on his tongue, spitting out a mouthful of blood, and roared, Junior sister, how can you be so cruel-hearted? Upon hearing these words, Liu Qingxian felt as if a needle was stabbing her heart. Three outer sect disciples could no longer stand by. Senior sister Liu, senior brother Wang has given his life for you. Can he not even earn a single word from you? He saved your life. You cannot even fulfill this tiny dying wish of his. He is on the brink of death. What harm is there in agreeing? You will not truly have to keep the promise anyway. Liu Qingxian was thrown into utter turmoil by their words, even starting to wonder if she was indeed too cold-hearted. Wang Qingxian's heart was filled with anticipation. He could sense Liu Qingxian's defenses were crumbling, that she would soon compromise. He bit the tip of his tongue once more, spitting out another mouthful of blood, putting on an appearance of being gravely wounded. He lifted his head weakly to the heavens and cried, I shall die with my eyes unclosed. Ah! Liu Qingxian was racked with guilt, her internal defenses on the verge of crumbling further, when several agile figures leaped rapidly down from above. Leading them was none other than Fang Chen, senior sister. The moment he saw Liu Qingxian was safe and unharmed, the anxious weight hanging over Fang Chen's heart finally lifted completely. Though he had deduced Liu Qingxian was not dead, whether she had sustained injuries or suffered permanent bodily harm had remained unknown. Seeing her unscathed, he was fully relieved. Liu Qingxian thought she was hallucinating at first. Had she actually heard Fang Chen's voice, she turned her head in confusion to look, and the moment her gaze landed on him, it was frozen in place. That handsome face she had missed so dearly, yet feared to see, came into view. Ever since she had kissed Fang Chen on a strange impulse at the Heavenly Secrets Pavilion's roaming auction, she had been too ashamed to see him, even daring not to show up for the Nine Peaks Grand Competition, but after being trapped here for 10 full days, she had gradually come to regret it. The path of a martial cultivator is fraught with peril, and death can strike at any moment. If one does not speak their love aloud, they may never get the chance to do so for the rest of their lives. Thus, seeing that face so suddenly, she could no longer control her emotions. She threw herself straight into Fang Chen's embrace, her snow-white arms wrapping tightly around his neck, her entire body burying itself in his chest. All these days, she had presented herself as a calm, rational, unyielding team captain. Now, as if she had returned to the side of her most reliable protector, she showed her softest side. She lay sobbing in his arms, full of grievance. Why did you come so late? I thought I would never see you again. The three outer sect disciples were stunned. All these days, no matter how severe the injury Liu Qingxian sustained, she would not even furrow her brow, tougher than any male disciple. Yet now she was acting so soft and vulnerable. What made them feel even more pity was Wang Qingxian. He had nearly lost his life for Liu Qingxian, yet had never seen her shed a single tear for him. Fang Chen had only just appeared, and Liu Qingxian was throwing herself into his arms, sobbing her heart out. Sometimes the gap between two people is even greater than the gap between a human and a dog. Wang Qingxian was so furious he nearly spat blood, cursing 18 generations of Fang Chen's ancestors in his mind. He came neither early nor late, precisely at this damned moment. He refused to believe that his bitter ruse could not hold its own against a mere appearance from Fang Chen. Ah, the pain is unbearable, junior sister. Just kill me with a single strike of your sword. Wang Qingxian put on an expression of utter agony. Only then did Liu Qingxian remember there was still a person lying on the ground. She quickly wiped away her tears, her face full of guilt as she said, Zhao Chen, senior brother Wang, blocked the cold poison for me just now to save me. He is dying. Cold poison. Fang Chen remembered this was an extremely potent poison, far more terrifying than the deadly venom of the 7, colored poison toad. But looking at Wang Qingxian, there was no frost on his body, nor did his external appearance match that of someone poisoned with cold poison. He immediately cast the Kai observation technique discreetly, seeing through his internal condition. His blood flowed smoothly, red and vibrant, with not a single sign of cold poison afflicting him. He could not help but feel confused. "Senior sister, are you certain he was poisoned by cold poison?" Liu Qingxian was so flustered from concern that she did not think too much about it, nodding her head. After a moment of thought, she did not hide the request Wang Qingxian had just made. She did not want to lie to Fang Chen, not even in the slightest. "Senior brother Wang's dying wishes is for me to agree to marry him," she quickly added, but I did not agree. Fang Chen suddenly realized the truth. He was feigning illness to morally coerce Liu Qingxian into agreeing to the marriage engagement. That way, once they returned outside, he could use this as an excuse to force Liu Qingxian to marry him. The senior brother had only gone out for a trip, and he had already learned such dirty tricks. He did not expose his lie immediately, asking Liu Qingxian instead, "Then do you want to agree?" Before Fang Chen had arrived, there might have been a tiny chance she could be persuaded. But now, lying in Fang Chen's arms, she answered firmly without the slightest hesitation, "Impossible. I can repay him with my life, but I will never trade my honor to settle a debt." Pausing for a moment, she stared deeply at the Fang Chen before her, summoning all her courage to say, "I only want to marry Xiao Chen." 10 days of being trapped in a desperate situation had made her figure it out. If some words are not spoken aloud, they may never be spoken at all. The 3 outer sect disciples were dumbfounded. What earth-shattering news had they just heard? Liu Qingxian, the #1 beauty of the 9 sects, was already taken. Fang Chen, by contrast, was relatively calm. Though Liu Qingxian had never voiced her feelings before, Fang Chen was no block of wood. How could he not have tasted the meaning behind her little gestures all this time? He just had not expected she would be the one to pierce this thin veil between them. Fang Chen did not say much, reaching out to wrap his arm around her waist. At this moment, silence spoke louder than any words. Liu Qingxian's jade-like face flushed bright red, her eyes brimming with shyness and joy. However, an angry, discordant voice shattered the warm atmosphere. "Junior sister Liu, you would treat me with such heartlessness." Wang Qingxian was driven mad with rage. He had put on a whole act of suffering just to get Liu Qingxian to agree to the engagement. Fang Chen had done nothing at all, yet Liu Qingxian had volunteered to marry him. This contrast, this gap, made him completely lose control. Liu Qingxian came back to her senses, quickly saying to Fang Chen, "Junior brother, do you have any rejuvenation pills? The bottle you gave me before is gone. Right now, the only thing that can save Wang Qingxian is a rejuvenation pill." Fang Chen spread his hands. "I used up all mine a long time ago." Liu Qingxian's face fell with helplessness. "Then what should I do? Senior brother ended up like this because of me." Fang Chen drew the Aishuang sword from his back, pressing it into her palm, and said, "Senior sister, senior brother Wang is in so much pain. You should just do as he said earlier, end his life and spare him more suffering. Every Qingming festival in the future, I will burn extra joss paper for him. I will never forget the life-saving grace he showed you." The 3 outer sect disciples were speechless. This is too ruthless, isn't it? How could Liu Qingxian ever agree? Is this a good idea? Liu Qingxian asked hesitantly. Fang Chen said, "You are not going to listen to me already, that fast." Afraid of making Fang Chen angry, Liu Qingxian hurriedly said, "I will listen, I will do as you say." Then she held the sword and walked towards Wang Qingxian. She said, "Senior brother Wang, the pain of cold poison is 10 times worse than being cut by a sword. I will end you with 1 strike and do my best to spare you extra pain. Rest assured, Xiao Chen is kind and benevolent. He will remember the favor you did me and burn plenty of joss paper for you." With that, she thrust the sword forward. Wang Qingxian was so furious he wanted to curse out loud. "Fang Chen, you are damn insane. You actually tamed Liu Qingxian, who used to be as proud as a peacock, into obeying you so docilely." Seeing the cold glint of the sword coming at him, he did not dare keep pretending any longer. He nimbly rolled to the side, dodging the sword's strike by the skin of his teeth. Liu Qingxian was stunned, and the 3 outer sect disciples also widened their eyes in shock. What is going on? Wasn't Wang Qingxian on the verge of death from serious injuries just now? Too weak to even speak a full sentence. How did he suddenly become so agile, able to dodge such a sharp sword strike? And also, weren't you the one begging Liu Qingxian to end your suffering? What are you dodging for? Liu Qingxian cried out in shock. "Senior brother Wang, what is the meaning of this?" Fang Chen took the sword back from her hand, twirled it in a graceful sword flower, and sheathed it back in its scabbard. He said calmly, "The phrase 'the human heart is insidious' was not invented out of thin air. It was summed up by our predecessors through lessons soaked in blood." Only then did Liu Qingxian come to her senses. She sized up Wang Chengjian and discovered he was far more than just agile. Though he had clearly been struck by the icy gale, there was not a single trace of frost damage on his body, nor any sign of cold poison invading his outer physique. Earlier she had been completely distracted by Wang Chengjian's half-dead, wretched act, and had paid no mind to these details at all. Looking at him now, how could she fail to understand? Wang Chengjian had deliberately staged a hero, saving the beauty ruse to trick her into agreeing to their marriage pact. "You despicable scoundrel!" Liu Qingxian flew into a rage on the spot. He had exploited her sympathy, tricked her into softening her heart and agreeing to the marriage pact, and this vile trick had come from none other than her eldest senior brother of many years, the same sect. She drew the spirit sword at her waist and struck at Wang Chengjian with a single slash. Wang Chengjian was terrified out of his wits, but he was only at the 9th layer of the Foundation establishment realm, while Liu Qingxian had long since reached the golden core realm. How could he possibly dodge? A chunk of flesh was immediately sliced off his arm by Liu Qingxian's strike. He howled in agony as he clutched his arm. This time, the pain was entirely real. Loathing filled Liu Qingxian's eyes as she snapped. "If not for the fact that we are fellow sect members, I would have split you in two with this single sword." Wang Chengjian knew there was no longer any hope of winning Liu Qingxian over, but he was unwilling, utterly unwilling. He had met Liu Qingxian far earlier than Fang Chen, so why did Fang Chen get ahead of him? "Fang Chen, I will not accept this. You have no spirit root. What right do you have to compare yourself to me? What right?" Fang Chen had originally intended to ignore him, but since he was called out directly, he decided to make things perfectly clear. "Eldest senior brother, do you truly believe you are stronger than me?" Wang Chengjian snorted coldly. "You only rely on your tough physical body to catch Tang Tianlong off guard. That is all. That is the only achievement you have to brag about." He subtly released the aura of his recently broken through 9th layer Foundation establishment realm cultivation base. "Compare to me, do you even stand a chance?" The 3 outer sect disciples looked on with reverence. In the current era, anyone who could reach the 9th layer of the Foundation establishment realm was counted as a first-rate disciple among the 9 sects, and no one dared to look down on them. Liu Qingxian stood up to defend Fang Chen, snorting, "So what? Given time, it is not impossible for Fang Chen to surpass you." Wang Chengjian sneered. "Time, 1 year, 2, 10, 20. Those without spirit roots are forever without spirit roots. You will never have much prospect on the path of cultivation." "Junior sister Liu, I have to say, your taste in men is truly terrible. You reject me, and instead choose worthless trash." The word trash had barely left his lips when his voice died in his throat, his eyes widening rapidly in shock. He sucked in a sharp breath, stammering, "Why, you. He stared unblinkingly at the surging spiritual power radiating from Fang Chen's side as if he had seen a ghost. Liu Qingxian sensed the aura as well, turning her head to look, her face filled with mixed shock and joy. "Zhao Chen, you've broken through to the peak 9th layer of the Foundation establishment realm." Fang Chen withdrew his spiritual power with a smile and said, "Your taste in choosing people is still quite good after all." Liu Qingxian cast a smug glance at Wang Chengjian. "If Zhao Chen is trash, then what does that make you, who has cultivated for so many years and still can't compare to him?" Wang Chengjian's face flushed bright red, his pride as eldest senior brother brutally crushed. He roared through gritted teeth, "I don't believe it. Fang Chen, you must have used some evil cultivation method to break through to this realm. I will report you to the Sect Master." A faint chill gathered in Fang Chen's eyes. When they were at the sect, he had laughed off all of Wang Chengjian's petty schemes and never bothered to settle scores. But today, Wang Chengjian had used such despicable means to trick Liu Qingxian into a marriage pact, showed not a shred of remorse after being exposed, and even threatened to report him. Fang Chen was not even afraid of being reported to the Grand Supreme Sect Master, so naturally he cared nothing for Wang Chengjian's threats of exposure. But it was high time Wang Chengjian learned his place. He tapped the tip of his foot against the ground and darted forward in an instant. Wang Chengjian laughed ferociously. "Perfect timing. Let me see just how fragile this power you gained from evil arts really is." He had disliked Fang Chen from the very first day the latter joined the sect, and that dislike had only grown over the years, until today it had evolved into the bitter hatred of a man whose betrothed had been stolen. He intended to slam Fang Chen into the ground and humiliate him severely right in front of Liu Qingxian, to make her see who the strongest man on the Sect Master peak truly was. Startled dragon, Fang Chen did not even bother drawing his sword and struck out with the strike of the asterisk roaming dragon palm asterisk. Wang Chengjian snorted coldly. If Fang Chen refused to draw his sword, he would teach him a lesson and let him know the price of underestimating his opponent. He drew his sword decisively, thrusting the blade straight toward Fang Chen's palm. In his imagination, Fang Chen's flesh and blood palm would be pierced straight through by this single strike. Reality proved otherwise. It was as if he had stabbed a solid block of forged iron. Not only did he fail to pierce it, but the sword in his hand was shattered inch by that unyielding iron palm. The palm then slammed into his chest, PFFT. The monstrous force, as heavy as the impact of a colossal elephant, shattered every bone in his ribcage, displaced his internal organs on the spot, and he spurted a mouthful of blood mixed with shredded flesh as he reeled backward. His body was sent flying directly into the glacier, embedding itself solidly in the ice. Liu Qingxian's eyes were filled with utter terror. His full-powered strike had been countered, and he had been gravely wounded by Fang Chen's casual single palm. The gap in strength between the two was several times greater than the gap between himself and Liu Qingxian. Fang Chen walked over slowly with his hands behind his back and said coolly, "Still want to expose me?" Liu Qingxian shivered all over and stammered, "No, I wouldn't dare." He could sense that if Fang Chen wanted to kill him, it would be easier than crushing an ant. Faced with such absolute power, he could not even fathom any rebellious thoughts. Whoosh, without warning, the howl of wind came from the distance. Liu Qingxian's face changed drastically, and she cried out, "Zhao Chen, the frost wind is coming. Hide quickly." Fang Chen turned around instead, facing the oncoming frost wind directly, and said, "There is indeed quite a bit of frigid poison contained within it." Ever since he began cultivating the *9 poisons true scripture *, his perception of all manner of deadly poisons had become far sharper. This small amount of frigid poison before him could not harm him in the slightest. He flicked his sleeve, wrapping around the oncoming wisp of frost wind, and drew all the frigid poison within it into his body, where it became nourishment for his poison core. As for the cold aura within the frost wind, it was automatically absorbed by the morning frost sword. When he lowered his sleeve, all that remained was a wisp of ordinary, harmless wind. He looked in the direction the frost wind had come from, a hint of curiosity in his eyes. What sort of creature is continuously producing this frigid poison? "Senior Sister Liu, take everyone up to the surface and wait for me there." As soon as he finished speaking, he activated his movement technique and sped toward the source of the frost wind. Liu Qingxian did not have time to ask what Fang Chen intended to do. She only managed to call out a single warning. "There is a blood flood dragon up there." A voice drifted over from Fang Chen's rapidly vanishing figure, without him even turning his head. "I have already slain it." The crowd was struck dumb. The 3 outer sect disciples exchanged glances. "Did I hear that wrong? He said he slew that blood flood dragon." One outer sect disciple could no longer hold back his confusion and asked, "Senior Sister Liu, who exactly is this man? You can't possibly tell me he is actually that Fang Chen from your sect, one without a spirit root?" It was no surprise he asked this question. Every feat Fang Chen had displayed just now had utterly shattered their worldview. Defeating Liu Qingxian with casual ease was one thing, but dispelling that terrifying frost wind with a single flick of his sleeve. What sort of power was that? And now he was claiming he had slain the blood flood dragon, a feat most would deem impossible. Liu Qingxian was also somewhat dazed. She felt that after not seeing Fang Chen for just over a month, he seemed like a completely different person. His current strength was completely beyond her comprehension. It took her a long while to come back to her senses, and she said, "Since Zhao Chen has told us to go up, it should be safe. There is no doubt about that." Suddenly, she noticed a gaze fixed on her. She turned to look and saw a beautiful girl around 18 years old, whose features looked equally lovely whether she was angry or smiling. Liu Qingxian asked in surprise, "Are you a friend of Fang Chen's?" Yue Mingzhu stared deeply at her, an unreadable glint swirling in her eyes. No wonder Fang Chen traveled thousands of li to save his so-called senior sister. It turns out the person he came for is you, the most beautiful female disciple of the 9 sects. Sensing the faint hostility in those words, Liu Qingxian frowned slightly. "Who are you?" Yue Mingzhu withdrew her gaze, looked up at the sky, and sighed long and low. "Someone who envies you." With that, she chased after Fang Chen's departing figure. Hai Mei pondered for a moment, then followed closely behind. She glanced sidelong at Yue Mingzhu, her tone dripping with schadenfreude. "It stings, doesn't it? The person you have protected with your life came all this way to save the one he loves." She still held a grudge against Yue Mingzhu, and struck without mercy the moment she saw an opening. Yet Yue Mingzhu's expression remained calm, and she spoke faintly. "What do you demon folk know of affection? When you love someone, you never stop to calculate if it is worth it. What I envy is that she can speak the words in her heart, while I can never reveal mine. Putting aside their age difference, she was still the sect master of the Hehuan sect. The gap between the two of them was so vast that even she, who had always pursued a life of unbridled freedom, could never cross it. Hai Mei scoffed. Who would have thought that the Hehuan sect master, who wanders the mortal world as if it were a game, would ever fall for someone for real? Far from being angered, Yue Mingzhu instead looked her up and down with a half-smile. I have heard that once a mermaid of your clan falls for a human, their fishtail will transform into human legs, and they will become no different from human women from then on. I am rather looking forward to the day you become a human woman. Hai Mei covered her mouth and laughed non-stop. Are you saying that I will fall in love with Fang Chen? Her expression suddenly turned solemn. That day will never come. Putting aside the grudge I hold against him for enslaving me, I have cultivated for hundreds of years. The trivialities of the mortal world can no longer disturb my heart, not to mention that he is a human. Yue Mingzhu laughed, her beautiful eyes curving into two crescent moons. I will bet that you will definitely fall in love with him. Let us wait and see. Hai Mei snorted angrily. How could I ever fall in love with a human? That is impossible. Not long after, the two caught up to Fang Chen. He stood atop an ice pillar, gazing down at the 10,000 Jiang abyss below, his expression somewhat grave. Yue Mingzhu rushed over, a hint of shock flickering in her eyes. Who would have thought such a wondrous sight existed deep within the glacier? Beneath their feet lay a circular abyss mouth, so deep that its bottom could not be seen, as if it led straight to the core of the earth. Countless ice winds, mixed with frigid poison, blew up from its depths. After only staying for a short moment, both Yue Mingzhu and Hai Mei found it somewhat difficult to resist the oppressive frigid poison, their bodies gradually growing stiff. Though Fang Chen was protected by a poison pill, even he could barely endure it after staying for too long. You are not thinking of going down to investigate, are you? Yue Mingzhu asked, already growing reluctant to proceed. Fang Chen shook his head. Of course not. I have observed the direction of the ice winds here, and it seems they primarily flow toward the northern border. Hai Mei's beautiful eyes contracted, and she spoke in shock. Young master, are you saying that the source of the ice and snow in the northern border is this abyss? She found it hard to believe, and Yue Mingzhu also thought Fang Chen's guess was rather far-fetched, asking, what makes you think so? Fang Chen said, if I had not witnessed the terror of the Brahma Heaven Clam Pearl, I would also find it hard to believe that a strange object with a temperature matching that of the sun exists in this world. This frigid abyss is not far from the Brahma Heaven Clam Pearl, so what is so impossible about it holding a similar extreme yin strange object? The two women thought it over carefully, and indeed found this highly plausible. Perhaps there was a similar palace at the bottom of this abyss, nurturing a great terror on par with the Brahma Heaven Clam Pearl. At this thought, the two women immediately moved far away from the abyss, not daring to get close even a little bit. Fang Chen's scalp also tingled, and he turned to leave immediately. He had no desire to encounter something like the Brahma Heaven Clam Pearl again. When they returned to the surface, Liu Qingxian and the others were waiting beside Xiao Bai. Fang Chen looked at Hai Mei, and the latter shrank back her neck. Young Master W, what orders do you have? Fang Chen thought for a moment, then said, bringing you back to the human territory will bring more trouble than benefit, and I may not even be able to decide whether you live or die. So go back to the demon clan. When I need you, I will come find you. Hai Mei felt as if a heavy burden had been lifted off her shoulders. She had been worrying about this very issue the entire time. As a war general under the demon emperor, if she was taken back as a captive, it was inevitable that high-ranking human cultivators would imprison or execute her. Fang Chen was only a low-ranking disciple, and could not sway the decisions of those powerful figures at all. A wisp of gratitude surged in her chest upon hearing Fang Chen take the initiative to concern himself with her safety. Fang Chen took out a chunk of clam meat and tossed it to her, saying, take this with you. Hai Mei exclaimed in shock, but I have rendered no merit. Did we not agree that one shall not accept rewards without earning them? Fang Chen said, when we humans part ways, it is our custom to give farewell gifts. You will grow accustomed to it in time. Hai Mei held the clam meat in her palms, and a jumble of conflicting emotions overwhelmed her for a moment. In her heart, there was both the resentment of being enslaved by Fang Chen and an undeniable stirring of emotion at his tolerance. He did not seem to treat her as a slave at all. Instead, he had given her a parting gift in the manner that human friends treat one another. Setting aside their opposing positions, Fang Chen was not actually a wicked person. As for the grudge of my enslavement, that is primarily the fault of the Hehuan Sect Master. Blame him if you must. This matter has very little to do with Fang Chen. Once she sorted out these thoughts, she expressed her gratitude openly. Thank you, young master. If you ever have need of Hai Mei in the future, do not hesitate to issue your orders. Fang Chen nodded and waved his hand, upon which Hai Mei merged into the ice and snow, vanishing after a series of rapid spatial flashes. Yue Mingzhu witnessed this scene, covering her mouth and giggling nonstop. And you claim to have cultivated for hundreds of years, immune to the disturbances of the mortal world. If you had not left so quickly, that fishtail of yours would have been long gone. Fang Chen wore a completely baffled expression and asked, "What are you laughing at?" Yue Mingzhu said with a playful huff, "Of course I am laughing at your immense romantic luck. Wherever you go, peerless beauties throw themselves into your arms." Just as she was about to make another sarcastic remark, she suddenly sensed something amiss. She gazed down at the snow plain beneath their feet. Fang Chen followed her line of sight and also detected an anomaly. Looking down, he saw the shards of ice beneath their feet gradually begin to tremble, and the tremors grew more and more violent by the second. Yue Mingzhu lifted her eyes to the sky and saw a dense swarm of spirit beasts rushing rapidly towards their location. The auras they exuded were immensely powerful. They were either sect elders of various sects or at the sect master level, and even the auras of several supreme elders flickered in and out among them. The impact of the nascent Soul Jade Talisman's attack was truly staggering. Even powerhouses as far away as Sunset City had sensed it. Suddenly, Yue Mingzhu spotted an exceptionally tall and imposing burly man among them, and her expression shifted slightly. It was the giant Sect Master. Yue Mingzhu said in a low, solemn voice, "Fang Chen, do not speak later. Let me handle everything." The nascent Soul Jade Talisman had ultimately been exposed. The only people who could have used it were the few individuals present, so Fang Chen would easily be suspected. A great calamity was unavoidable for him. Thunderous rumbles echoed as over a dozen spirit beasts arrived. One after another, renowned, powerful figures came to a halt before an enormous, crater-like palm print. When they saw the blood flood dragon corpse inside that had been squashed into a meat patty, their pupils constricted violently. Kong Yuanba was both enraged and overjoyed. That's right, that's exactly it. This is the attack from the nascent Soul Strike Jade Talisman. Whoever used this talisman, whoever possesses it, is the murderer who killed the great elder of the giant sect. Soon they spotted Xiao Bai and the others in the distance. It was the missing patrol team along with Fang Chen, the disciple who had come to rescue them. Fang Chen, Kong Yuanba's lips trembled slightly as he barked, "What are you doing out here? If something happens to you, what am I supposed to do?" Yue Mingzhu, who had been just about to step forward, was stunned. "Wait, you are the giant Sect Master. Why are you more concerned about Fang Chen's safety than the elders of the Qingyan sect?" The surrounding crowd also exchanged glances with each other. If they remembered correctly, the relationship between the giant sect and Qingyan sect was extremely poor. For these words to come out of Kong Yuanba's mouth felt extremely bizarre. Kong Yuanba did not have the face to admit that he had been threatened by two deputy pavilion masters. He could only speak in a gruff, tight voice. "Have you sustained any injuries?" Fang Chen cupped his hands in a salute. "Thank you for your concern, Senior Kong. I have no serious injuries to speak of." To be fair, the words of the two deputy pavilion masters carried immense weight, but no one dreaded misfortune befalling Fang Chen more than Kong Yuanba. Kong Yuanba gave a slight nod then, and asked again, "You were on a mission here. Did you see who used that jade talisman capable of unleashing a nascent soul realm strike?" Fang Chen rubbed his nose. Was this not the equivalent of asking a rat who stole the grain from your larder? He hesitated for a moment, then said, "I did not get a clear look." Kong Yuanba frowned. "You either saw clearly or you did not. What is this nonsense about not getting a clear enough look?" Fang Chen replied, "That person's use of the nascent soul jade talisman alerted a ferocious creature at the bottom of the lake. Before I could make out his face, he was blasted to smithereens by that beast, not even a speck of ash left." Kong Yuanba questioned skeptically, "The man who could kill our sect's grand elder is no trivial figure. What kind of ferocious beast could erase him so completely that not even his bones remain?" Suspicion immediately rose in Kong Yuanba's heart. What ferocious beast could withstand a full strike from a nascent soul realm powerhouse? Had they not seen that the blood flood dragon was crushed into a pulp? At that moment, a grand elder stared solemnly at the former Tai Lake, now a vast, dry crater. A trace of terror colored his voice. Could it be that a soul formation realm demon lord has emerged among the demon race? Only such a being could evaporate the entirety of Tai Lake. Nascent soul realm cultivators are incapable of such a feat. Only then did the crowd realize that the once sparkling, unfathomably deep Tai Lake was now completely parched and barren. There is a great hall over there. Someone spotted it and immediately flashed forward to the front of the dilapidated palace at the lake bottom. From the remaining characters, they could faintly make out the demon race script for Li Huo Heavenly Palace. It seemed that this place had once been nurturing some peerless treasure. The appearance of the demon emperor's war general here now made perfect sense. He was undoubtedly guarding this object until it was ready to emerge into the world. Fang Chen secretly breathed a sigh of relief. It was fortunate he had the blazing heaven clam pearl to pin all the blame on, otherwise he would have had a very hard time explaining himself today. Kong Yuanba sucked in a sharp breath of cold air. A soul formation realm ferocious beast, this, Fang Chen, did you manage to catch a glimpse of what it was? Fang Chen did not dare reveal the existence of the blazing heaven clam pearl, lest it trigger widespread panic or reach the ears of more members of the demon race. He smiled wryly. How would I dare peek at a being of that level? I was too busy scrambling to hide. No one doubted this statement. What kind of terrifying ferocious beast could evaporate all the water of Tai Lake in one go? Even they would not have dared to sneak a peek if they had been in Fang Chen's position. Kong Yuanba's gaze flickered with uncertainty for a long while, before he let out a heavy, unwilling snort. He got lucky, dying at the hands of that ferocious beast. If he had fallen into the hands of my giant sect, I would have made him beg for death, only to find it impossible. The crowd then began to inspect the surrounding area. The hole that had melted through the earth and drawn forth magma was also discovered, further confirming just how terrifying that ferocious beast was. Inside the palace, the shattered remains of the clamshell, blown to pieces, were treated as priceless treasures and divided up among the elders of the various sects. Even the corpse of the blood flood dragon was split equally among them. Though the most valuable parts, the demon core and spirit flesh, had been shattered to pieces, so many powerful figures had gone to such great trouble here that none of them intended to return empty-handed. After tidying up the scene and confirming nothing had been left behind, the crowd rose to their feet and departed, still full of regret. Fang Chen also hurriedly urged everyone to climb onto Xiao Bai's back, and they followed the larger group on their return journey. Yue Mingzhu let out a long sigh of relief. She had already prepared to take the fall for Fang Chen and admit that she was the one who took the jade talisman. She had not expected Fang Chen to have already anticipated this, and effortlessly shifted all suspicion away from himself in the blink of an eye. When she further recalled how Fang Chen had tricked the blazing heaven clam pearl using the illusion house demon core, she could not help but feel a surge of admiration for him. Fang Chen, you certainly have no shortage of crafty tricks up your sleeve, Yue Mingzhu said with a sigh. Fang Chen replied in an annoyed tone, thank you ever so much for the praise. All of you get some proper rest now. The journey back will be completely safe. No need to worry. Liu Qingxian's taut nerves finally relaxed completely. As Xiao Bai's steps jostled her gently back and forth, drowsiness immediately washed over her. Her head tilted to one side, and she fell into Fang Chen's arms. When she woke once more, the clamor of noisy crowds surrounded her. As she opened her eyes, she realized she had appeared in the square of Sunset City. What made her cheeks flush bright crimson was that she had fallen asleep nestled in Fang Chen's arms. I have slept for so long. It must have been a full day and night, at the very least. Yue Mingzhu curled her lips and teased. Fang Chen wishes you could sleep longer, so he can hold you for more time, of course. Paying no mind to Liu Qingxian's already even rosier fair face, she stood up and spoke with a sour lilt in her tone. All right, I have accompanied you to save your beloved. Now we shall part ways here. Do not seek me out for this kind of matter again in the future. It leaves an uncomfortable tightness in my chest. Gratitude welled in Fang Chen's heart. After a moment of thought, he took out a pair of communication jade slips, handing one of them to her. Contact me if you ever need anything. This will repay the favor I owe you for this act today. I knew you could not bear to part with me. Delight instantly flooded Yue Mingzhu's face as she snatched the communication jade slip. With this treasure in hand, no matter how far the two were separated in the future, they would always be able to reach one another. She waved the jade slip proudly in front of Liu Qingxian. Fairy Liu, you had best keep a close eye on your man. Be careful that I steal him away from you one day. With that, she laughed heartily and soared away into the distance. Liu Qingxian stamped her foot huffily, saying, Xiao Chen, who is this woman? She dares to openly provoke me right to my face. This is simply outrageous. Fang Chen smiled and said, she is a friend of mine, a disciple of the Hehuan sect named Yue Mingzhu. This time, she drew away the blood flood dragon and sea fiends to buy me time to escape, nearly losing her own life in the process. Upon learning that Yue Mingzhu had nearly sacrificed herself for Fang Chen, Liu Qingxian's anger dissipated at once. She even felt a tinge of shame, for she had never gone to such lengths for Fang Chen before. However, you say her name is Yue Mingzhu. Liu Qingxian rested her chin on her hand, frowning deeply. Why do I feel like I have heard this name somewhere before? Fang Chen chuckled in amusement, so she does have quite the reputation. It seems I am ill-informed, for I had no idea such a formidable elite disciple exists within the Hehuan sect. But Liu Qingxian shook her head, saying, that is not the case. I did not hear this name among ordinary disciples, but from the mouths of several of the sect's supreme elders.